Chapter 1855. I picked it up on the way. Tang Ao shrugged casually, then said, "You are indeed a monster in this place. It has only been a couple of days, and you have already reached the 5th level of the Yuan martial realm." Right then, Blood Scar's chi was still fluctuating. Obviously, he had just made a breakthrough. Thinking about how Blood Scar was only at the 6th level of the body refining realm a couple of days ago, and now he was at the 5th level of the Yuan martial realm, Tang Ao felt a bit embarrassed. Normally, Tang Ao's 9-Dragon Emperor Jade body was already one of the best body types for training in the world. However, even so, in a place like the Flying Star continent, Tang Ao found that his 9-Dragon Emperor Jade body seemed to be greatly suppressed. Although using Yuan crystals to train had increased his training speed a lot, using Yuan crystals to train also had a huge drawback. However, using origin crystals to cultivate also had a huge drawback. The biggest problem was that origin crystals were not easy to obtain. Just like right now, Tang Ao did not have a single Yuan crystal on him. Right now, Blood Scar's cultivation had already reached the 5th level of the Yuan martial realm, and with the help of the snow-winged spirit cat, Tang Ao felt that he could go save Chu Shuahan after the celebration of the 9-Colored Deer Merchant Guild. Once he saved Chu Shuahan, he would think of a way to get all the spirit plants for the 3 treasure blood lotus pellet. As long as he could successfully make the pellet, he would be able to recover his astral-reaching realm cultivation in this place. If Tang Ao and the rest wanted to leave this place, this would be the safest way for now. As for using the space-breaking spell, if he really had to use it, Tang Ao would not be stingy. "Have you found any other spirit herbs for refining the 3 treasures blood lotus elixir?" After thinking for a while, Tang Ao looked at Blood Scar. Before, he and Blood Scar had split up, and Blood Scar was indeed looking for spirit plants for the pellet. "Yeah, I have found something," Shui Hen said as he took out 6 spiritual grasses. These 6 spiritual grasses were found by Shui Hen according to the map given by Tang Ao. However, Shui Hen did not know much about spiritual grasses, therefore, he was not sure if he had found the right spiritual grasses. Tang Ao was overjoyed when he saw the 6 spiritual herbs that Shui Hen took out. Apart from the 3 treasures blood lotus elixir's main ingredient, you also need 12 kinds of spiritual herbs. You're lucky to have found 5 of them. After that, Tang Ao picked up one of the spiritual herbs and said, "This spiritual herb looks no different from the azure fallen leaf, but in fact it is not the azure fallen leaf. It is a spiritual herb called the windgrass." Tang Ao hadn't expected that Blood Scar's harvest would be so great. Now that Shui Hen had found 5 of them, it meant that as long as Tang Ao found the other 7, he would be able to refine the 3 treasures blood lotus pill. Tang Ao felt that at the 9-Colored Deer Merchant Guild's 100-year celebration, there would at least be a few spirit herbs that he needed. If not, he could only go to the Dan Alliance and the various Dan pavilions to check. However, Tang Ao still felt that if there were no spirit herbs that he needed at the 9-Colored Deer auction, then he might not be able to buy them at the Dan Alliance and the other Dan pavilions. As time went on, Tang Ao's desire to leave the Flying Star continent became more and more urgent. Chapter 1856. Right now, help me find some spirit plants for making the extreme rank raising Yuan pellet. 5 days later, we will go to the 9-Colored Deer Chamber of Commerce's 100-year celebration and try to find the remaining 7 spirit plants. After that, we can find some soul crystals, and then we can start making the 3 treasure blood lotus pellet. Tang Ao was ready to leave the Flying Star continent. Although there were a lot of treasures there, Tang Ao realized that the Flying Star continent was really not suitable for training. With Blood Scar's help, it would be a lot easier to find the spirit plants. Not long after, Blood Scar handed over a storage ring stuffed with spirit plants to Tang Ao. Although Blood Scar also had his own way to recover to the peak of astral reaching realm level 9, He had to admit that his method was way too lacking compared to the 3 treasure blood lotus pellet. There were 3 pellets in total. After absorbing and refining the 3 pellets, Blood Scar would be able to recover to the peak of astral reaching realm level 9. Although Blood Scar was still under Tang Ao's control, being able to recover his cultivation so easily was still a huge temptation for Blood Scar. In this uninhabited area, the spirit plant resources were really rich. Low and mid-rank spirit plants could be seen everywhere, and high-rank spirit plants could be found after a careful search. As for the extreme-rank spirit plants, as long as one was not too unlucky, 1 or 2 could be found. Soon, after finding all the spirit plants that he needed, Tang Ao brought Blood Scar to the cave that he had found before. There was a hidden enchantment in this cave. Before, Tang Ao had not figured it out, but now, Tang Ao was ready to continue studying it. Of course, while studying this hidden enchantment, Tang Ao would definitely want to make the extreme rank raising yuan pellet. However, before entering the cave, Blood Scar was shocked. Then, his blood chi wrapped around Tang Ao, and he was about to perform his blood shadow escape art. However, Blood Scar's blood shadow escape art, which had never failed him before, made a mistake this time. Around Tang Ao and Blood Scar, 8 layers of bloody light appeared, completely sealing Blood Scar and Tang Ao in this space. Then, a silhouette slowly appeared. It was Shuejiao, who had been chasing after Blood Scar. At that instant, Shui Vulture's body emanated an abnormally terrifying aura. Tang Ao really could not understand what happened to Shui Vulture's body. At that instant, Shui Vulture's cultivation reached the 8th level of the Origin Realm. The cultivation of the 8th level of the Origin Realm was nothing in the profound Yellow Continent or even the Winter Plains. However, in the Flying Star Continent, the cultivation of the 8th level of the Origin Realm was absolutely an existence that could destroy the world. You 2 little mice, this Emperor has gone through a lot of trouble to catch you. After Bloody Vulture revealed himself, he looked at Tang Ao and Blood Scar with an unfriendly gaze. Tang Ao and Shui Hen had ugly expressions on their faces as they sensed the terrifying yuan qi fluctuations coming from Shui Vulture. Although Tang Ao and Blood Scar used to be peak level 9 astral reaching realm warriors, and had mastered a lot of tricks, they were still not as powerful as before. However, Shuejiao, who was standing before them, was once a top-notch expert at the Chaotic Heaven stage. His methods were even more powerful than Tang Ao's. Otherwise, if he were just a normal 8th level Origin Realm warrior, Tang Ao and Blood Scar would not be this worried. I will hold him back. As long as you can break this blood mist enchantment, I will be able to perform my blood shadow escape art and escape. While Tang Ao was vigilantly looking at Shuejiao, Blood Scar suddenly used his soul remembrance to talk to Tang Ao. Chapter 1857. Hearing Shui Hen's soul message, Tang Ao revealed a bitter expression. This guy is at the 8th level of the Origin Martial Realm. He's not someone you can fight against. Plus, I don't have any methods to break this blood mist barrier in a short amount of time. Right now, we can only combine our strength to fight this guy. If Tang Ao was at the 5th level of the Origin Martial Realm, then Tang Ao would definitely agree with Shui Hen's method. Sadly, Tang Ao was only at the 1st level of the Origin Martial Realm. No matter how strong Tang Ao was, Tang Ao didn't believe Shui Hen's blood mist barrier could be broken that easily. Plus, with him, Shui Hen, and the snow-winged spirit cat working together, it wasn't certain who would win. This guy is very strong. Be careful. Shui Hen was decisive. After warning them, he charged at Shui Hen first. Facing Shui Hen's attack, Shui Hen revealed a mocking expression. An ant trying to shake a tree. After speaking, Shui Hen opened his hand and a scarlet blood claw clawed at Shui Hen. Under Shui Hen's claw, Shui Hen's body instantly became a bloody mist. Shui Hen's claw naturally missed. Beautiful! Tang Ao praised in his heart. At the same time, the green lotus sword soul appeared behind Tang Ao. 7 Kill Holy Way, Wind and Cloud Annihilation. 7 Cyan flowing lights suddenly trembled and transformed into 7 rainbow lights that shot towards Xuehen. Suddenly, the temperature of the entire area dropped by a few degrees. The entire blood mist barrier emanated a desolate aura. The 7 Kill Holy Way was an archaic martial technique that had been passed down in the 7 Kill sect for a long time. In the entire 7 Kill sect, the number of disciples that could successfully cultivate the 7 Kill Holy Way could be counted on one hand. In this generation of 7 Kill sect disciples, only 2 people with great talent had successfully cultivated the first sword of the 7 Kill Holy Way, Wind and Cloud Annihilation. Blood Vulture's brows twitched when he sensed Tang Ao's terrifying sword aura. As a former expert at the Celestial Turbid Realm, Xuejio could tell how powerful Tang Ao's strike was with a glance. Although Tang Ao was only an ant at the first level of the Origin Realm, if he was caught off guard, even an expert at the 5th level of the Origin Realm would be killed by Tang Ao's sneak attack. But sadly, Xuejio was not a martial artist at the 5th level of the Origin Realm. Although Tang Ao's timing was extremely good and his strike was full of might, Xuejio was not a martial artist at the 5th level of the Origin Realm. However, it was still too weak for Bloody Vulture. Puchi! Tang Ao's sword chi pierced through Xuejio's body, and a mist of blood suddenly exploded from his body. This sword chi pierced through his heart from the front and came out from the back. If it was a normal warrior at the 8th level of the Origin Martial Realm, or even a Sea of Souls realm, they would die for sure. Seeing the sword strike Xuejio, neither Tang Ao nor Xuehen revealed any happy expressions. Because they both knew that Xuejio had done that on purpose. With Blood Vulture's strength, he could have easily used his Blood Mist avatar to evade the attack. However, not only did Blood Vulture fail to evade the attack, he even took the attack head-on. This made Blood Scar and Tang Ao realize how big the gap between them and Blood Vulture was. At that moment, Xuejio looked at Tang Ao and Xuehen with ridicule in his eyes. He said indifferently, "This kind of martial skill is definitely not found in this place. It seems like you 2 mice also have some secret." After saying that, Xuejio's body flashed and suddenly disappeared. So fast! Dodge. Chapter 1858. At the same time, Tang Ao also saw Xuehen's body fly out of a blood mist. Xuehen was the first to injure Xuehen while he was still in his blood mist form. At that moment, Tang Ao realized the true gap between them. Unlike all the opponents he'd met before, Xuehen was a reincarnated Celestial Turbid Realm expert. Whether it was battle experience or secret techniques, he was far from what Tang Ao and Xuehen could contend with. Tang Ao fell to the ground with a pale face, while Xuehen was only barely able to stabilize himself after crashing into the blood mist barrier. The difference in strength was too great. Although Tang Ao and Xuehen were almost invincible within the same realm, unfortunately, Xuehen was the same. Although Xuehen was only at the 8th level of the Origin Martial Realm, Tang Ao felt that even a Sea of Souls realm warrior would not be able to do anything to him, let alone the 2 of them. It's time to end this. After injuring Tang Ao and Xuehen, Xuehen formed 2 seals with his hands. Tang Ao and Xuehen were not unfamiliar with these seals. They were soul imprints. Clearly, Xuehen did not intend to kill the 2 of them. Instead, he wanted to use the soul imprint to control them. After seeing the seal, Tang Ao was immediately overjoyed. If Xuehen directly attacked at this moment, the 2 of them would not be able to escape today. However, if Xuehen wanted to use the soul imprint to control the 2 of them, he had clearly miscalculated. After exchanging a glance with Xuehen, Tang Ao ignored the pain on his body and rushed towards Xuehen. Xuehen obviously understood Tang Ao's intentions. Tang Ao wanted to create an opportunity for him to sneak attack Xuehen. Although Xue Hen did not think that Tang Ao would have a chance to do anything to Xue Hen, he still chose to believe in Tang Ao without any reason. The two of them had been enemies in their previous lives, and had fought countless times. There was a saying that the enemy knew you better than the friend. This saying was very appropriate here. Although Xue Hen did not know what Tang Ao was going to do, he knew that he only needed to believe in Tang Ao and find an opportunity to attack. Sure enough, when Xue Vulture saw Tang Ao rushing towards him, he sneered, "Futile struggle." After saying that, Xue Vulture did not hesitate and sent a blood-colored rune towards Tang Ao's forehead. Bloody Vulture didn't have any thoughts of killing Tang Ao and Yi Shiwen for now. In Bloody Vulture's opinion, Tang Ao and Yi Shiwen had quite a big secret. This was where Divine King Yunxing died, so Bloody Vulture suspected that Tang Ao and Yi Shiwen might have obtained something from Divine King Yunxing. As time, Xue Hen as he could Hen, and Hen as he could you, as he Tang Hen and X, as Yang and as Hen Yui Ao Hen Tang Ao and Hen and had soul. If Tang Ao was also a normal martial artist at the first level of the origin realm, naturally, Tang Ao would not have any strength to resist against the Blood Vulture. However, Tang Ao, who had the 9-Dragon Emperor Jade body, was definitely not a normal first-level origin martial realm martial artist. Currently, although Tang Ao's cultivation was only at the first-level origin martial realm, as Tang Ao's Soul Sea recovered, Tang Ao's remembrance had already reached the level of a Soul Sea realm martial artist. In fact, with the support of the Soul Sea, Tang Ao's remembrance was even stronger. To place a soul imprint, the most basic thing was that one's remembrance had to be able to suppress the opponent. Chapter 1859. Most importantly, most martial artists only had the means to plant a soul remembrance imprint. They didn't have the ability to remove the soul remembrance imprint. So, although most people knew the power of the soul remembrance imprint, they didn't dare to rashly use it. This was because the soul remembrance imprint established a special relationship between the two parties. Once one party died, the other party would also be injured. Once a spirit master died, the martial artist with the soul remembrance imprint would not be able to escape death. Because of this, unless it was absolutely necessary, most martial artists wouldn't use the soul remembrance imprint. However, to martial artists like Tang Ao and Blood Vulture, who could remove the soul remembrance at any time, they didn't have to worry about this. Blood Vulture had planted the soul remembrance on Tang Ao and Blood Vulture's bodies. As long as Blood Vulture received satisfactory information, he could remove the soul remembrance at any time and kill the two of them. The instant the blood mark entered their foreheads, Tang Ao and Blood Vulture's bodies buzzed. Although Tang Ao's soul remembrance was powerful, in order to make Blood Vulture take the bait, he had suppressed his own remembrance. Now that Blood Vulture had fallen into the trap, Tang Ao released all of his remembrance and attacked the remembrance that Blood Vulture had poured into his body. At this moment, Blood Vulture's heart was in turmoil. Blood Vulture never would have imagined that Tang Ao, a mere origin martial realm first-level ant, could have such a powerful remembrance. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, Blood Vulture wouldn't have believed such a thing existed in this world. But now, not only did Blood Vulture believe it, he even put himself in danger. Currently, Blood Vulture's remembrance was completely restrained by Tang Ao's body. Outside, Blood Scar instantly seized the opportunity to cast the Blood Sacrifice formation. To a Blood-type martial artist, the Blood Sacrifice formation was an extremely terrifying formation. At this moment, Blood Scar's fingertip pointed at his forehead and 9 drops of life essence blood were forced out. Then, Blood Scar's hands quickly formed a seal and slapped the ground. Immediately after, a formation with densely packed blood-red runes appeared between the Blood Scar and the Blood Vulture. After this formation appeared, a special blood-red line appeared between the two. The blood sacrifice formation was an extremely special formation. This formation's special point was that it would kill 1,000 enemies while sacrificing 1,000 allies. Because in the blood sacrifice formation, the damage suffered by both sides was completely equal. In other words, if Xue Hen died now, Xueju would die as well. If he hadn't been forced to this extent, Xue Hen wouldn't have used the blood sacrifice array to fight Xueju with his life. But now that Tang Ao had created the conditions, how could he, Xue Hen, be afraid of death? After the blood sacrifice array was formed, Xue Vulture's body suddenly trembled. Little bastard, stop right now. I'll let you two go and I won't make things difficult for you two anymore. Of course, Blood Vulture knew what the blood sacrifice array meant to him. If Blood Scar couldn't figure it out, then he could only die with Blood Scar. With his current strength, he simply could not escape the shackles of the blood sacrifice array. Is this considered begging for mercy? The corners of Xue Hen's mouth curled into a cold smile. With a wave of his hand, 9 blood-colored spears instantly appeared around him. Xue Hen didn't waste any words. He pressed down with his hand and 9 blood spears instantly pierced through his body, nailing him to the ground. At this moment, Xue Hen's aura became extremely weak. Chapter 1860. Good move. Although Blood Vulture and Blood Scar were both heavily injured and barely breathing, Blood Vulture couldn't help but admire Blood Scar's power. Because Blood Scar's 9 spears didn't even avoid his heart. Blood Scar's attack clearly wanted to take him down with himself. If he didn't stop, he would most likely die from the blood sacrifice array's backlash. On the other side, Tang Ao's face was also pale. Even though Tang Ao's soul remembrance was powerful, he still couldn't handle Blood Vulture's soul remembrance proactively entering his body. Moreover, under the blood mark suppression, Tang Ao's consciousness was already somewhat hazy. With Tang Ao's current soul remembrance strength, if he directly resisted Blood Vulture's soul remembrance, Blood Vulture wouldn't be able to imprint the blood mark into Tang Ao's body. However, once this blood mark entered Tang Ao's body, even if Tang Ao's soul remembrance was slightly stronger than Blood Vulture's, he would still be suppressed by the mark. Ha ha! Seeing Tang Ao and Blood Scar, Blood Vulture suddenly let out a loud laugh. Subsequently, Tang Ao and Blood Scar saw Blood Vulture take out a blood-red incense from his storage ring. Burning blood incense. Seeing this burning blood incense, Tang Ao and Blood Scar felt a wave of despair. Burning blood incense was a very special treasure. Burning blood incense was ignited by a martial artist's essence blood. Its effect was very simple. It burned the blood to extend one's life. At this moment, Blood Scar and Tang Ao were competing with Blood Vulture to see which side couldn't hold on first. Originally, under Tang Ao and Blood Scar's combined attack, Blood Scar and Tang Ao would most likely be heavily injured, but Blood Vulture would definitely die. However, after Blood Vulture took out this burning blood incense, if this continued, the final result would be Tang Ao and Blood Scar dying, while Blood Vulture would be heavily injured. It was at this moment that the snow-winged spirit cat suddenly attacked. The snow-winged spirit cat opened its mouth and lightly spat out a ball of cold air. The ball of cold air also enveloped the Blood Vulture. At this moment, Blood Vulture couldn't move at all. Seeing the cold air enveloping him, Blood Vulture's eyes showed a trace of panic. He seemed to want to use some method to escape, but how could Tang Ao and Blood Scar do as he wished? Originally, Tang Ao and Xue Ying had only wanted to stall Blood Vulture and see who would fall first. But now that the snow-winged spirit cat had made its move, Blood Vulture would be the one to fall. As Blood Vulture looked on in horror, the snow-winged spirit cat's icy mist slowly enveloped him. Then, Blood Vulture was turned into an ice sculpture. Seeing this scene, Tang Ao and Xue Hen secretly applauded. After freezing the Blood Vulture, the snow-winged spirit cat immediately rushed forward and grabbed the air with its claws. Immediately, two ice blades slashed towards the blood vulture. Seeing that the snow-winged spirit cat grasped the air, Tang Ao was overjoyed. He didn't waste time teaching it today. However, Tang Ao's happiness didn't last long. His expression changed. Little guy, dodge. This was because Tang Ao's sky polarity eyes had seen Shui Vulture's mouth curl into a complacent smile. Shui Vulture immediately opened his mouth and shot a scarlet spear towards the snow-winged spirit cat. Chapter 1861. Seeing the snow-winged spirit cat fall to the ground, Blood Vulture's eyes revealed a mocking expression. A beast dares to sneak attack me? You're courting death. As Blood Vulture spoke, the crimson spear flew back again. This time, it stabbed at the snow-winged spirit cat's head. The snow-winged spirit cat was seriously injured and couldn't move at all. If this attack hit, the snow-winged spirit cat would definitely die. Tang Ao wanted to help, but while Tang Ao was restraining Blood Vulture, Tang Ao was also being restrained by Blood Vulture. At this time, if Tang Ao's psyche failed, then Tang Ao would really be branded by Blood Vulture's soul. Beside him, Shui Hen was also unable to split himself into two. Moreover, Shui Hen's current condition was even worse. If this continued, Blood Scar would definitely die. Fortunately, at this moment, the snow-winged spirit cat suddenly flipped over, narrowly avoiding Blood Vulture's crimson spear. Then, the snow-winged spirit cat opened its mouth and caught Blood Vulture off guard. An icicle suddenly pierced Blood Vulture's throat. However, such a fatal injury couldn't do anything to Blood Vulture, but it created an opportunity for Tang Ao and Blood Scar. This time, Tang Ao and Blood Scar were able to force Blood Vulture to this extent because Blood Vulture didn't know Tang Ao had the 9-Dragon Emperor Jade body. After underestimating him, he was caught off guard by Tang Ao and Blood Scar. Even so, Blood Vulture still had the advantage. If this continued, both the snow-winged spirit cat and Tang Ao would likely die here today. Therefore, this time, Tang Ao immediately seized the opportunity. With a flash of golden light, he summoned his battle sage Bone Life Soul. Then, Tang Ao threw a punch at Blood Vulture, sending him flying. At this moment, although Blood Vulture was frozen by the snow-winged spirit cat's cold air, Tang Ao knew that due to the huge difference in cultivation, the snow-winged spirit cat's cold air couldn't freeze Blood Vulture for long. Therefore, after sending the Blood Vulture flying with a punch, Tang Ao immediately took out his demon-slaying axe. If Tang Ao's cultivation was a little higher, Tang Ao would not have hesitated to attack Blood Vulture. But now, Tang Ao didn't dare to do so. This might be their only chance to escape. If they missed this chance, then Tang Ao would definitely fall here today. Due to Shui Vulture's injuries, the blood mist barrier Shui Vulture had set up was also extremely weak. When Tang Ao suddenly chopped down with the Devil Beheading Axe, the boundary formation in front of Tang Ao was instantly smashed by Tang Ao. After breaking the blood mist boundary formation, Blood Scar knew what to do without Tang Ao's instructions. Although Blood Scar was on the verge of death, he still clenched his teeth and persisted. Blood Chi suddenly bloomed from his body and immediately wrapped around Tang Ao and the snow-winged spirit cat. Bam! At the same time, the ice covering Blood Vulture's body shattered. With a wave of his hand, the Crimson War Spear appeared in Blood Vulture's grasp. Without any hesitation, Blood Vulture hurled the Crimson War Spear towards the blood mist that had yet to dissipate. With a pft sound, Tang Ao looked at the scarlet blood battle spear that had pierced through his abdomen and smiled bitterly. Then, Tang Ao's voice sounded. Old Blood Vulture, remember this. If I don't die this time, the next time we meet will be the day you die. Chapter 1862. Although Shui Hen was weaker than him, Shui Vulture had to admit that Shui Hen's blood shadow escape was very powerful. If it was another cultivator with the bloodline, Shui Vulture would be able to track them. However, after Xue Hen used Blood Shadow Escape, Xue Vulture couldn't find any trace of him. Therefore, if Xue Hen wanted to catch Tang Ao and Xue Hen, he would have to try his luck by following the overarching blood net. In a valley several hundred miles away, a cloud of blood mist suddenly appeared in midair. Then, a white cat and two human figures fell into a small lake in the valley, completely unconscious. At that moment there was a pretty girl wearing light green clothes by the lake. She was startled to see Xue Hen and the others, but when she saw Tang Ao, she immediately used her primordial qi to bring Tang Ao, Xue Hen, and the cat to the lakeside. After Lu Yu saw Tang Ao, she was somewhat depressed. This was because Lu Yu discovered that ever since she met Tang Ao, nothing good had happened to her. First, she was besieged by the Lin family's martial artists. Later, after escaping from the Lin family, she encountered an old monster who cultivated a blood attribute cultivation method. After that old monster saw the yellow-turbaned strongman, he chased after her. Finally, she got rid of that monster and met an earth dragon beast that was at the 9th level of the origin martial realm. She was chased by the earth dragon beast and had to escape here not long ago. After escaping here, Lu Yu was surprised to find that she was lost again. Because there was an illusion formation in this area, Lu Yu couldn't leave this area no matter how many times she tried. Out of boredom, Lu Yu came here to fish. She didn't expect that Tang Ao and the others would come before she could catch any fish. Besides, Tang Ao, Xue Hen, and the snow-winged spirit cat seemed to be in a very bad situation. Tang Ao, Xue Hen, and the snow-winged spirit cat were all in a bad situation. After checking Tang Ao's situation, Lu Yu secretly sighed. Tang Ao was really lucky. If she hadn't been there, Tang Ao, Xue Hen, and the snow-winged spirit cat would have been dead by now. Lu Yu did not dare to waste any more time. Among the three of them, Xue Hen's injury was the most serious, while the snow-winged spiritual cat's injury was the lightest. Although Tang Ao's injuries were only slightly better than the bloody scars, Lu Yu realized that there seemed to be a special life soul in Tang Ao's body that was constantly repairing Tang Ao's injuries. Otherwise, Tang Ao would have long perished. Therefore, Lu Yu helped Xue Hen sit up and took out a jade box from his storage ring. Lu Yu skillfully opened the jade box and took out a set of golden needles from it. Then, with a thought, the azure skycloud flame instantly appeared in Lu Yu's palm. Lu Yu pierced the golden needle through the skycloud flame and pierced several acupoints on Xue Hen's body. After inserting 72 needles, Lu Yu stopped and hurriedly took out a medicine box from his storage ring. When he opened it, there were many porcelain bottles neatly arranged inside. These porcelain bottles contained different kinds of medicinal liquid. Lu Yu waved his hand and 36 golden needles instantly flew up. After they were dipped in the medicinal liquids, Lu Yu waved his hand, and the 36 golden needles also flew to Xue Hen's body. Chapter 1863. Using Medicine Ancestor's Needle Technique, consumed a lot of soul remembrance. At this moment, 70% of Lu Yu's soul remembrance was instantly consumed, but Xue Hen's life was saved. Immediately, Lu Yu took out a jade dew pill from her storage ring and gave it to Xue Hen. After eating the jade dew pill, Xue Hen's pale face finally improved a little. Although Xue Hen's aura was still very weak, at this moment, as long as nothing went wrong, Xue Hen would be fine. After recovering a little more, Xue Hen slowly opened his eyes. Although Xue Hen's consciousness was a little muddled before, Xue Hen still knew that he was saved by someone. After opening his eyes and seeing Lu Yu, Xue Hen's eyes showed a rare expression of gratitude. Xue Hen was never someone who expressed his emotions, but at this moment, Xue Hen wanted to thank Lu Yu. However, Xue Hen found that he was too weak right now, so weak that he couldn't even speak. However, as he laid on the bed and watched Lu Yu wipe his sweat with his sleeves, Xue Hen couldn't help but be stunned. Like Tang Ao, it wasn't that Xue Hen hadn't seen beauties before, but unlike Tang Ao, Xue Hen had no interest in women. However, at this moment, Xue Hen found that the young girl in front of him was so gentle and beautiful. When he saw her, his heart began to beat rapidly. Although Xue Hen was heavily injured, he had a feeling that he wanted to protect the young girl in front of him. Was this love at first sight? What a strange feeling! With that thought in mind, a rare smile appeared on Xue Hen's face. After Lu Yu finished arranging the golden needles, she turned back to check on Xue Hen's situation. Seeing that Xue Hen's aura had calmed down, Lu Yu was a little pleased. Xue Hen had suffered such a serious injury, but she was still able to save him. Even if it were her two senior brothers, it would not be easy for them to do this. Very quickly, Lu Yu also saw the smile on Xue Hen's face. Lu Yu was a little confused, not knowing why Xue Hen was smiling. Was it because he didn't die, so he was smiling? Ignoring Xue Hen, Lu Yu went in front of Tang Ao. After looking at Tang Ao and the snow-winged spirit cat, Lu Yu picked it up without any hesitation. Although Lu Yu had saved these three guys because of Tang Ao, he had completely ignored Tang Ao when he was saving them. In the beginning, Lu Yu had saved Bloodscar, who looked pleasing to the eye. Now, he was going to save the cute snow-winged spirit cat. At this moment, Tang Ao was in a hazy state. Although he couldn't wake up, Tang Ao was clear about the situation outside. After seeing Lu Yu's actions, Tang Ao felt very indignant. Lu Yu knew him, but Lu Yu chose to save Bloodscar and the snow-winged spirit cat first. Lu Yu was a guy who valued love over friendship. Tang Ao felt that if it wasn't for the jade bone vitality life soul in his body that constantly repaired the damage in his body, he might really have died in front of the doctor. However, Tang Ao was extremely surprised by Lu Yu's medical skills. Tang Ao knew how serious Bloodscar's injuries were, but it didn't take long for Lu Yu to pull Bloodscar back from the gates of hell. Previously, Tang Ao thought that Lu Yu's best skill was alchemy, but now, Tang Ao knew that compared to Lu Yu's medical skills, Lu Yu's alchemy skills were really not good enough. After seeing Bloodscar's breathing calm down, Tang Ao turned his attention to the snow-winged spirit cat again. Being able to escape this time was thanks to this little guy. Although it was hit by Blood Vulture's Scarlet Blood Battle Spear, Tang Ao saw that Blood Vulture's Scarlet Blood Battle Spear didn't hurt its internal organs. At this moment, the little guy had also fainted because it was exhausted and lost too much blood. Chapter 1864. Following that, Tang Ao saw Lu Yu summon an aqua blue life soul. Tang Ao had never seen this life soul before, but Tang Ao could still sense that it wasn't simple. Tang Ao could sense an endless gentle force from this life soul. It was somewhat similar to his Jade Bone Vitality life soul, but it was weaker than the Jade Bone Vitality life soul. After all, according to the Heaven Evolution records, the Jade Bone Vitality life soul was one of the top healing-type life souls. Therefore, it was reasonable that Lu Yu's life soul was inferior to Tang Ao's. Furthermore, with Lu Yu's superb medical skills, a healing-type life soul could only play a supporting role for him. Wisps of warm azure primordial energy gently caressed the snow-winged spirit cat's wounds like flowing water. In the battle with Blood Vulture, the snow-winged spirit cat's abdomen had been blasted open by Blood Vulture's Scarlet Blood Battle Spear. At that moment, under the nourishment of Lu Yu's azure life soul, the snow-winged spirit cat's wounds were rapidly healing. At this rate, Tang Ao knew that it wouldn't take long for the snow-winged spirit cat to completely recover from its injuries. Compared to Tang Ao and Bloodscar, the snow-winged spirit cat's injuries weren't too serious. The reason it had fainted was mainly because it had expended too much energy. As long as its external injuries were healed, the snow-winged spirit cat would have no other problems. Although it was unconscious, its expended primordial energy and psyche were slowly recovering. With the passage of time, Tang Ao's consciousness became clearer. Gradually, Tang Ao was able to communicate with the Jade Bone Vitality life soul. After communicating with the Jade Bone Vitality Life Soul, Tang Ao controlled the Jade Bone Vitality Life Soul to repair his broken ribs and damaged organs. Although the Jade Bone Vitality Life Soul was helping Tang Ao heal his injuries when Tang Ao wasn't controlling it, the Jade Bone Vitality Life Soul's intelligence was too low. Without Tang Ao's guidance, it would take a very long time for the Jade Bone Vitality Life Soul to repair Tang Ao's injuries. Under Tang Ao's control, Tang Ao's injuries were rapidly repaired by the Jade Bone Life Soul. At the same time, Tang Ao's aura was constantly strengthening. Sensing the change in Tang Ao, Lu Yu turned around to take a look and immediately understood. When he was checking on Tang Ao's injuries, Lu Yu realized that there was a very powerful healing-type life soul in Tang Ao's body. Now that Tang Ao had recovered a little, he could control this life soul to heal him. Not long after, Tang Ao opened his eyes and slowly exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. "How did you end up in such a sorry state?" Lu Yu didn't turn his head as he healed the snow-winged spirit cat and asked Tang Ao. "It's all thanks to you this time. I encountered a powerful guy and was ambushed by him." Tang Ao and Lu Yu had a good relationship. Furthermore, Lu Yu had saved the three of them, so Tang Ao naturally didn't hide it from Lu Yu. There was no need to hide it either. The Jade Bone Vitality Life Soul was indeed powerful. Tang Ao sensed that his external injuries had basically recovered. He could only slowly adjust his Yuan Qi and Psyche. Bragging. "You were able to escape from a powerful guy's sneak attack." Lu Yu looked at Tang Ao with some disdain. Then, he asked, "How powerful?" 8th level of the Origin Martial Realm. Tang Ao bitterly smiled because Tang Ao felt that if he said it, Lu Yu would think that he was lying. After all, Tang Ao was only at the 1st level of the Origin Martial Realm. Blood Scar was a bit stronger than Tang Ao, but he was only at the 5th level of the Origin Martial Realm. The snow-winged spirit cat had the highest cultivation, reaching the 6th level of the Origin Martial Realm. However, it was too young, so it clearly couldn't display the combat power of a 6th level Origin Martial Realm. Chapter 1865. You also know about Blood Vulture? With just a glance, Tang Ao knew that this person was Blood Vulture, who had fought with them before. However, Tang Ao didn't understand how Lu Yu knew about Blood Vulture. Not long ago, he saw my yellow scarf warrior and wanted to steal my storage ring. It was because of this person that I escaped all the way here. After coming here, I seem to have been trapped by some kind of barrier. In any case, no matter what method I use, I can't leave this place. It seems that I've been here for more than 10 days. Before coming to the Flying Star continent, Lu Yu's cultivation had reached the Yin-Yang realm, which was higher than Tang Ao's cultivation. Moreover, Lu Yu also had many methods, but after coming here, Lu Yu really had no way of leaving. "You can't leave this place?" Tang Ao frowned. He didn't think that Lu Yu was lying to him. At the same time, he also knew Lu Yu's ability. Originally, Tang Ao planned to refine top-grade essence raising pills for the next few days and participate in the 9-Color Deer Merchant Guild's 100-year celebration 5 days later. However, if he was trapped here, then it would be a bit troublesome. This area has a very powerful no-fly restriction. I can't fly too high, and if I fly for too long, I will also feel a sense of dizziness. If I had to walk, I would have walked through almost all the roads here, but no matter where I go, I will definitely be able to walk back to this place. This thatched hut was here before, but I don't know what lived here before. If Tang Ao had walked in from the outside, then he could still leave by following Tang Ao's path. However, Tang Ao had used Blood Scar's Blood Shadow Escape to come here, so Tang Ao naturally didn't know which way to go. However, since Blood Scar's Blood Shadow Escape could come from the outside, then he could naturally leave from the inside. Therefore, if he couldn't leave when the time came, he could let Blood Scar use Blood Shadow Escape to leave. However, after looking at Blood Scar, Tang Ao was a bit worried. Blood Scar's injuries weren't light. Tang Ao felt that Blood Scar wouldn't be able to recover before the 9-colored deer auction began. After all, the blood sacrifice great array could be said to be fatal to a cultivator who cultivated a bloodline cultivation method. If Xue Hen had not decisively used the blood sacrifice great array, Tang Ao felt that it would not have been so easy for him to escape. Meow. As Lu Yu stroked the snow-winged spirit cat's head, the cat woke up. When it woke up, it found that a stranger was touching its head. It immediately cried out. The reason why it only called out was that the snow-winged spirit cat knew that it was this big sister who had just saved it. Otherwise, if it was a stranger, it would have scratched her. Lu Yu was obviously very fond of this little fellow. He immediately took out a bottle of spirit beast pills from his storage ring. Lu Yu's alchemy skills were not much weaker than Tang Ao's. At this stage, the two of them could be said to be evenly matched. However, the spirit beast pill that Lu Yu had concocted was slightly different from the one that Tang Ao had concocted. Both the pill recipe and the color of the pill were different. Chapter 1866. Little fellow, do you want to eat? Looking at the snow-winged spirit cat, Lu Yu shook the jade bottle in his hand. Hearing Lu Yu's words, the snow-winged spirit cat hastily nodded its head and lightly jumped into Lu Yu's embrace. Its small claws lightly scratched Lu Yu's arm. This little greedy cat. Tang Ao saw the snow-winged spirit cat act like this and felt a bit helpless. This little fellow now followed whoever gave it food. Lu Yu couldn't help but giggle at the snow-winged spirit cat's affectionate behavior. Unable to resist the snow-winged spirit cat's expectant gaze, Lu Yu took out a spirit beast pill and handed it over. After receiving the spiritual beast pill from Lu Yu, the little fellow swallowed it and a joyful expression appeared on its face. Although Lu Yu's spirit beast pill was different from Tang Ao's, the effects were about the same. After resting for another 2 hours, Tang Ao had pretty much recovered. Because Lu Yu said before that this region couldn't be flown for long and that no matter where one went, they would eventually return here, Tang Ao planned on going out to take a look. Because Lu Yu had said that they could not fly in this area for a long time, and no matter where they went, they would eventually return to this place, so Tang Ao decided to go out and have a look. Compared to Lu Yu, Tang Ao's remembrance was stronger and Tang Ao also had heavenly extreme pupils. Compared to Lu Yu, Tang Ao's soul remembrance was stronger, and Tang Ao also had heavenly extreme pupils. I'm going out for a walk and see if I can discover anything. After resting, Tang Ao got up and said to Lu Yu, I'm going out for a walk to see if I can find anything. After resting, Tang Ao stood up and said to Lu Yu. Lu Yu nodded. Don't worry, I've tried many times before. Then I'll have to trouble you to take care of the two of them. Tang Ao looked at the snow-winged spirit cat happily playing in Lu Yu's embrace. Tang Ao knew that this little fellow clearly wouldn't go with him. As for the unconscious blood scar, it definitely wouldn't go with him. However, leaving the snow-winged spirit cat here was also good. Right now, Lu Yu was only at the origin martial realm 2nd level. If something happened, the snow-winged spirit cat could protect Lu Yu and Blood Scar. Although this space was strange, there were also many demonic beasts. Tang Ao had just used his soul remembrance to investigate. In the surroundings of this thatched cottage, there were many low-rank demonic beasts. This seemed to be a relatively safe place because the demonic beasts nearby were all very weak. They were basically all under the 9th level of the body refinement realm. However, Tang Ao was also afraid that something unexpected would happen. After all, Blood Scar was seriously injured and unconscious. He didn't have any fighting strength. If he took the snow-winged spirit cat away at that time, as long as a monstrous beast around the 3rd level of the origin realm came, Xue Hen and Lu Yu would be finished. After informing Lu Yu, Tang Ao left the thatched cottage. Although Lu Yu had mentioned that this place had a very powerful flight restriction formation, Tang Ao still flew into the air with a surge of yuan qi. As soon as he flew up, Tang Ao discovered that something was wrong. There was some kind of powerful forbidden space array in this space. When Tang Ao was about 4 or 5 feet above the ground, he felt as if a mountain was pressing down on him. If he wanted to continue upwards, he wouldn't be able to do it. Not only that, even if he simply stayed in the air, Tang Ao could feel that his yuan qi and soul remembrance were quickly being consumed. According to this consumption rate, even if Tang Ao's yuan qi was vigorous and his soul remembrance was abundant, he could only fly for 300 breaths of time. Chapter 1867. After observing for a while, and not finding anything special, Tang Ao randomly chose one of the paths to enter. When walking in, Tang Ao felt a weak fluctuation of energy, but other than that, this mountain path was no different from an ordinary mountain path. Along the way, Tang Ao saw some good spirit grasses, so he picked them conveniently. Because there were too many spiritual grasses here, Tang Ao collected spiritual grasses along the way and almost forgot that he was here to explore. When Tang Ao remembered, he could only smile bitterly. Although Tang Ao looked up, he immediately saw the small lake in the middle of the valley, and there was a thatched cottage next to the small lake. At this moment, Lu Yu was playing with the snow-winged spiritual cat outside the cottage. After seeing Tang Ao, Lu Yu smiled and said, "How is it? I was right, no matter where you go, you will eventually return to this place. And let me try again." Tang Ao also smiled and did not care. However, Tang Ao felt that the reason why he did not find anything was because his attention was attracted by the surrounding spiritual herbs. There were many spiritual herbs here, and many of them were even marked as rare in the 100 herb collection. Others might not know what it meant to mark rare spiritual herbs on the 100 herb collection, but Tang Ao was very clear in his heart. Spiritual herbs that were marked as rare on the 100 herb collection could basically be regarded as extinct. But even so, Tang Ao still saw a lot of spiritual herbs in this place. Just now, Tang Ao was attracted by these spiritual herbs, so he did not pay attention to the road. At this moment, in the space of Tang Ao's chaotic 6-light mirror, a simple spiritual herb garden had been formed. Luo Yunshang was holding a medicinal hoe in her hand, helping Tang Ao transplant these spiritual herbs. If it wasn't for the fact that this place was a bit strange, Tang Ao wanted Luo Yunshang to come outside. Although cultivating in the primal chaos hexagram mirror was faster than cultivating in the outside world, and the primal chaos hexagram mirror was very quiet and safe, Tang Ao was afraid that the little girl would be bored to death. With a thought, Tang Ao disappeared from the spot. When he reappeared, he was inside the primal chaos 6-light mirror. Seeing Tang Ao, Luo Yunshang's face lit up and said, "Senior Tang Ao, I have broken through to the first level of Origin Martial Realm. Also, I transplanted the spiritual herbs you put in. Junior Yunshang, you've worked hard. Do you want to go out for some fresh air? Oh, I forgot to tell you, Lu Yu is here too." Tang Ao suddenly recalled that Luo Yunshang and Lu Yu had left together. However, because of Shui Vulture, the three of them had been separated. "Sister Lu Yu is here too? Senior Tang Ao, where are you right now?" Hearing that Lu Yu was safe, Luo Yunshang was very happy. After all, Lu Yu single-handedly attracted a terrifying expert away. Then, Luo Yunshang said to Tang Ao, "Senior Tang Ao, I think I should cultivate here. I feel like this place is quite suitable for cultivation." Chapter 1868. After Luo Yunshang agreed to stay here to cultivate, Tang Ao took out many techniques and cultivation resources for her. Although Tang Ao had previously given Luo Yunshang quite a bit, and Luo Yunshang still hadn't finished using them, Tang Ao clearly wouldn't be stingy towards Luo Yunshang. Previously, it was because Luo Yunshang looked like La Kale. Now, it was because Tang Ao already treated Luo Yunshang as his sister. Towards his sister, Tang Ao wouldn't be stingy. After giving the cultivation resources to Luo Yunshang and answering Luo Yunshang's cultivation problems, Tang Ao began to continue exploring the canyon. Although Tang Ao still saw many decent spirit herbs, this time Tang Ao didn't start harvesting them. Instead, he carefully observed the changes in his surroundings. However, there was no difference from before. As Tang Ao walked, he discovered that he could see the small lake in the center of the canyon again. To this, Tang Ao was very shocked. This situation was definitely caused by an array. However, what Tang Ao didn't understand was that throughout the entire process, Tang Ao didn't sense any fluctuations from an array. One had to know that during the exploration, Tang Ao's sole remembrance was constantly covering the surroundings. However, even so, Tang Ao still didn't find any traces of an array in the canyon. Tang Ao didn't stop. He continued to choose a mountain path. This time, Tang Ao directly opened his heavenly pole pupils and observed his surroundings as he walked. However, not long after, Tang Ao returned to the center of the canyon without any accidents, just like the previous few times. The small lake with its calm surface appeared in front of Tang Ao. Even so, Tang Ao didn't give up. Others wouldn't turn back until they hit a wall, but Tang Ao obviously wouldn't turn back even if he hit a wall. Because if even the sky polar eyes could not discover the secret of this valley, it meant that this valley was extraordinary. It could also mean that there were some unimaginable opportunities in this valley. At the same time, if Tang Ao couldn't understand the mysteries of this valley, he wouldn't be able to use the blood shadow escape technique to take them away after Bloodscar woke up. Then, things would be troublesome. Therefore, no matter what, Tang Ao had to understand the secret of this canyon as soon as possible. 5 days later, the 9-colored Deer Commerce's 100-year celebration was extremely important to Tang Ao. Putting aside everything else, Tang Ao had to obtain the map to the Earth Firestone ruins. If he wanted to refine the 3-treasure blood lotus pill for Bloodscar, it was obviously not enough to use an ordinary alchemic fire. He had to obtain the Earth Fire Essence to upgrade the Netherworld Flame. After the upgrade of the Earth Fire Essence, the Netherworld Flame would no longer have its original cold-een attribute. Tang Ao could use the Netherworld Flame to refine pills in the future. Moreover, Tang Ao only had one chance to refine the 3-treasure blood lotus pill. The other spirit herbs were fine, but the main material, the 3-treasure blood lotus, Tang Ao only had one. If he failed to refine it, then Tang Ao could only use the space-breaking talisman to take everyone away. However, Tang Ao felt that under the circumstances where he was fully prepared, it wouldn't be easy to fail. Chapter 1869. After coming to a stop, Tang Ao sat cross-legged on a boulder. Tang Ao then began to recall the situation of the various paths in the canyon. Soon, a 3-dimensional map of the canyon appeared in Tang Ao's mind. Tang Ao was taken aback by just one glance. When all these things were combined, the entire canyon was actually a formation. Tang Ao had never seen this formation before, but Tang Ao still recognized it. It was the Chimen-Duanjia Formation. Moreover, it was the Chimen-Duanjia Formation that was constructed using the topography of the land, a supreme formation that used all things in the world as its formation flags. After understanding that this was an extremely high-level formation, Tang Ao felt much more at ease. Since he had determined that this was a formation and even recognized it, the next thing he had to do was to figure out how to break the formation. Tang Ao was worried that no matter what he did, he would not be able to find out what kind of existence this canyon was. That would be the most troublesome thing. If Lu Yu's formation skills were on par with her alchemy skills, Tang Ao would have discussed it with Lu Yu. However, Lu Yu's mastery of formations was obviously lacking. Otherwise, Lu Yu would not have been trapped here for more than 10 days without any result. Using heaven and earth as the formation board, and all things as the formation flags. This was a formation that belonged to the highest realm of formations. The level of this formation might not be very high, but if one wanted to break this formation, unless one was an extremely talented person, it would be impossible for them to do so even if they spent their entire life. Tang Ao was definitely not talented in formations. Otherwise, Tang Ao would not have been unable to break through to become a Grade 1 Immortal Formation Master, having inherited Yun Xiaoyao's formation skills for so long. Moreover, this was also because the 9 Dragons Emperor's Jade Body was born with a clear understanding of all great Tao. This allowed Tang Ao to learn forging weapons, refining pills, and formations very quickly. Furthermore, he had the guidance of an expert like Yun Xiaoyao. However, even under such conditions, Tang Ao could only set up a Grade 6 spiritual formation. From this, it was clear that Tang Ao's talent in formations was only average. However, this was also because Tang Ao spent the least time on array formations. Most of Tang Ao's time was spent on cultivation. As for alchemy, artifact refining, array formations and the like, Tang Ao would only practice them when necessary or when he had free time. Therefore, Tang Ao's progress in terms of artifact crafting and array formations was really slow. Before Tang Ao threw out formation flags. Of course, Tang Ao did not throw out these formation flags to break the Chimenduanjia formation. Instead, he wanted to restore everything within the Chimenduanjia formation into formation flags and observe the changes of the Chimenduanjia formation. Among all the formations, the Chimenduanjia formation had the most changes. The better the formation master's understanding of formations, the more changes there would be in the Chimenduanjia formation. Tang Ao did not know how powerful the formation master who had set up the Chimenduanjia formation was, but Tang Ao knew that the formation master must have been far more capable than him. Otherwise, it would not have been so difficult for Tang Ao to use the formation flags in the wasteland. A day passed quickly, but Tang Ao still did not make much progress. Chapter 1870. It was just that Tang Ao found that these array flags were relatively easy to locate at the front, but the further he went, the more difficult it became for Tang Ao to determine the position of these array flags. The 18th array flag in Tang Ao's hand took Tang Ao a full 2 hours to put it down. One had to know that the previous 17 array flags, Tang Ao only used this much time. Phew! After letting out a slight breath, Tang Ao calmed himself down and once again studied this Chimenduanjia array. This time, Tang Ao directly closed his eyes and used his heart to perceive the rhythm of everything around him. In the beginning, this kind of perception was still a bit vague, but as Tang Ao concentrated, everything around him quickly became clear. Just like Tang Ao's judgment just now, Tang Ao felt that the entire canyon did indeed form a magnificent array formation, and this array formation replaced the array flags with natural things. After carefully sensing for a moment, Tang Ao suddenly felt shocked. This was because Tang Ao found that things were not as simple as he thought. At this moment, Tang Ao felt that everything in this canyon, since appearing in the canyon, had become a special array flag, also participating in the evolution of the array formation in the canyon. This canyon was changing all the time. Every time a monstrous beast died, or a new monstrous beast was born, the array flags were also changing. A flower withered, a grass drilled out of a crack in the rock. These changes were subtly affecting the evolution of the array formation. After feeling this, Tang Ao suddenly felt a sense of powerlessness in his heart. Although there was no such thing as an unbreakable array formation in this world, after seeing this array formation, Tang Ao really did not have any confidence in his heart. Tang Ao did not know whether this array formation could be broken, but Tang Ao knew that at present, he was afraid that he really did not have the ability to do so. Just as Tang Ao had this idea, Tang Ao suddenly felt shocked. This is the Death Gate. Because just now, Tang Ao suddenly saw himself appear in the position of the Death Gate. Unable to leave this formation, would he be trapped here until he died? Tang Ao muttered in his heart. No! This was definitely not what Tang Ao wanted to see. No matter what, Tang Ao had to leave this place. Although there was no danger in this place, there were no Yuan crystals or spirit chi. If he only relied on Yuan chi to train, then even if Tang Ao trained until he died, he would not be able to reach the Sea of Souls realm. Therefore, Tang Ao had to leave this place and go to a wider world. Although this array formation was powerful, Tang Ao didn't believe that he could be blocked by a mere array formation. At the thought of this, Tang Ao's heart was once again ignited. At this moment, a ray of hope appeared in the Death Gate. As long as the heavenly Tao did not end, there would still be a ray of hope. Moreover, this array formation was only set up by a powerful array master. Although Tang Ao had not found any loopholes in this array formation, Tang Ao did not believe that there was a perfect array formation in this world. Just as Tang Ao was about to carefully look for loopholes, Tang Ao suddenly stopped. Everything in this array formation was its array flag. Under such circumstances, it was almost impossible for Tang Ao to find a loophole in this array formation. Chapter 1871. N. Suddenly, Tang Ao thought of a question. Why would someone arrange such a powerful array formation in this canyon? This array formation could be said to be impossible to get out of. As long as one came into the array formation and did not know how to break it, they would be trapped in the array formation for the rest of their lives. Such an array formation made Tang Ao feel that this seemed to be a relic left by a top powerhouse, and the descendants of this powerhouse must have the right way to break the array formation. After breaking this array formation, there must be something hidden in the array formation. After thinking of this, Tang Ao immediately began to deduce along this line of thought. Soon, Tang Ao discovered that this array formation might really be hiding something. It was just that Tang Ao had not determined the position of the array formation yet. Tang Ao's hands continued to throw out array flags. After thinking for a moment and feeling that something was wrong, Tang Ao changed the array flags in the wrong position. On the third day, Tang Ao suddenly felt the huge array formation in front of him suddenly tremble. Then, Tang Ao was surprised to see that at this moment, the array formation that he had arranged no longer needed his control and was operating on its own. However, compared to the array flags that used everything in the world, Tang Ao's array formation was obviously much worse. But Tang Ao's heart was still very good, because at this moment, Tang Ao had used array flags to restore this Chiman Dun Jia array, so it was not impossible to break the array formation. At this moment, Tang Ao already had some ideas, but in the end, Tang Ao did not understand how to do it. However, before breaking the array formation, Tang Ao saw something different, that is, there was a blank space in this array formation. For Tang Ao, this Chiman Dun Jia array was already the most perfect array formation that Tang Ao had seen since he started cultivating array Dao. However, such an array formation actually had a blank space, which made Tang Ao feel a little strange. One had to know that a blank space in an array formation was a low-level mistake. Only those array masters who had just started learning array formations would make such a mistake. An array master who could set up such a level of array master was naturally not a beginner array master. Why would such a powerful array Dao expert leave a blank space in the array? Tang Ao pondered. Soon, Tang Ao's eyes lit up. Tang Ao clapped his hands and said, "I understand." In this formation, it could be said that everything changed according to the changes of the formation flags in the formation. However, there was a blank space in the formation. The blank space was not affected by the formation, and would not change according to the changes of the formation. Therefore, Tang Ao already knew what this blank space was for. Without even thinking about it, Tang Ao knew that there must be treasures in this specially left blank area. It was just that he didn't know what kind of treasure was hidden here, or if it was the remains of some powerhouse. Putting away the array flags, Tang Ao carefully identified some positions. Then, Tang Ao's eyes were a little stunned, because the blank space that Tang Ao had just identified was actually diagonally behind Tang Ao. However, Tang Ao really felt that it was not the so-called blank space, because there were actually 3 mountains that were hundreds of feet tall. Moreover, under the observation of the sky polar eyes, Tang Ao was sure that there were really 3 mountains, and definitely not an illusion created by the illusion array. Even so, Tang Ao still walked towards the 3 mountains. Chapter 1872. Previously, Tang Ao had said that he wanted to refine some of the demon-slaying act. However, even now, Tang Ao had yet to refine the demon-slaying acts. Since Tang Ao had nothing to do, Tang Ao decided to start refining the demon-slaying act. This was not the first time Tang Ao had refined such a high-grade immortal artifact. Previously, he had refined the primordial sacred heaven bow and the farmer god cauldron, which were of a slightly higher grade compared to the demon-slaying axe. The demon-slaying axe had 9 layers of restrictions. This time, Tang Ao was prepared to refine the first 3 layers of restrictions. If that was not possible, then he would only refine the second layer. After refining it, Tang Ao would be able to use the demon-slaying axe more smoothly, and the power of the demon-slaying axe would also be greater. He easily forced out a drop of blood essence from between his eyebrows and infused it into the demon-slaying axe. Immediately, Tang Ao sent his soul remembrance in. Previously, Tang Ao knew that the demon beheading axe's internal damage was severe. Now that he had started refining it, Tang Ao finally understood how severe the demon beheading axe's internal damage was. There were many inscription arrays inside the devil-slaying axe. These inscription arrays were like veins that covered the devil-slaying axe. But at this moment, more than 70% of these inscription arrays had been destroyed. Under the influence of each other, less than 10% of the inscription arrays inside the monster-slaying axe were still functioning. Tang Ao quickly refined the first layer of restrictions on the devil beheading axe. However, after refining the first layer of restrictions, Tang Ao did not continue to refine the second layer of restrictions. That was because refining the second layer of restrictions would be futile. After refining a layer of restrictions on the devil-slaying axe, Tang Ao held it in his hand. Immediately, he felt as though he could move it with his heart, as though he was intimately connected to it. Tang Ao held the demon beheading axe and casually swung it. An axe blade flew out from the demon beheading axe and shattered a basalt 10 meters away from Tang Ao. Sensing the berserk power of the devil-slaying axe, Tang Ao felt very satisfied. Without thinking too much, Tang Ao walked up to the mountain wall. Since the formation inferred that the empty area was here, Tang Ao also wanted to see what was here. With a thought from Tang Ao, the vast and boundless essence energy in his body gathered on the demon-slaying axe. As Tang Ao's essence energy gathered, the demon-slaying axe began to tremble slightly. As the demon-slaying axe trembled more and more intensely, Tang Ao could no longer infuse his primordial energy into the demon-slaying axe. Tang Ao roared and slashed out with the demon-slaying axe in his hand. It was completely different from Tang Ao's imagination of flying dust and crumbling mountain walls. When Tang Ao chopped down with his axe, Tang Ao and the other man disappeared in an instant. By the time Tang Ao reacted, Tang Ao had already arrived in a completely unfamiliar place. It was an abnormally dilapidated palace. Even though there were only some broken walls left, Tang Ao could still sense how glorious the palace must have been at its peak. At that moment there was no one in the dilapidated palace, but Tang Ao saw many good things. These treasures were scattered randomly, as though no one had ever been here. Apart from all sorts of treasures, Tang Ao also saw some skeletons. At that moment, there was a skeleton in front of Tang Ao. This time, the skeleton was pale gold. The owner of the skeleton seemed to have experienced a fierce battle, as his entire right arm was gone. In his left hand there was a grayish blade. Although the saber looked terrible, Tang Ao knew that it was definitely something good. This was because Tang Ao recognized that this was a weapon forged from black crow gold, and its grade was impressively at grade 2 immortal grade. Even though it was an immortal equipment, Tang Ao still wanted to say that the forging of this saber was really a failure. Because the black crow gold was a grade 6 immortal material, and a good grade 6 immortal material had been used by a terrible weapon refiner to refine a grade 2 immortal artifact saber. Although Tang Ao didn't like this saber, he was very interested in Tang Ao's black crow gold. Just now, Tang Ao used his heavenly polar eyes to examine it, and this piece of black crow gold was very good. This smith clearly knew that his level wasn't up to par, so he only used the entire piece of black crow gold to forge a saber, and didn't add any other materials. Therefore, Tang Ao could remove all the inscription arrays in the saber, and this black crow gold saber would naturally become a piece of black crow gold. Even though Tang Ao didn't know what he was going to forge with black crow gold, this was a top-grade material that even someone like Tang Ao wouldn't mind having too many of. Since he came across it, he definitely had to keep it. Chapter 1873. The palace was in a complete mess. There were many corpses of cultivators and broken immortal artifacts. That's right. After entering the palace, Tang Ao saw immortal artifact-grade weapons everywhere. From that, he could tell that the cultivators who fought here must have been peak-level experts. Tang Ao did not understand. Why would such a complicated array be used to hide a ruined palace? In the beginning, Tang Ao had assumed that the hidden palace was the remnant of some expert. Now, however, Tang Ao knew that the hidden palace was just a ruined palace. There was no legacy left behind by any expert. After taking a few more steps forward, Tang Ao suddenly stopped. Just now, when Tang Ao entered, he was attracted by the black crow gold. After collecting the black crow gold, Tang Ao began walking around the ruined palace. However, Tang Ao had neglected a very serious problem. That was, when he was outside the palace, Tang Ao had used an array formation to deduce that this place was a blank area that was not affected by the array formation. Moreover, due to a strange combination of factors, Tang Ao had accidentally entered this place. This place was clearly not the same as the canyon. It was easy for Tang Ao to come in. However, how was he going to get out? Tang Ao had been walking around the palace for a long time, but he had yet to find a way out. As for going back the way he came from, that was also impossible. The reason why Tang Ao had appeared in that place in the beginning was random. It was not because there was a special spatial array gate there. If he were to be trapped here and unable to get out, he would be in big trouble. Immediately, Tang Ao activated his sky polarity eyes and scanned his surroundings. Thanks to his sky polarity eyes, nearly a quarter of the palace was visible to Tang Ao. Even so, Tang Ao was still unable to find a way out of this space. This space seemed to be protected by a special dimension, completely independent of the void. After observing for a while and finding nothing, Tang Ao did not continue looking around. Instead, he began searching around the ruined palace. Tang Ao felt that this palace seemed to have been independent of the void since it was built. However, something had happened to it later on. Since it was independent of the void, the people in the palace would have to travel back and forth between the palace and the outside world. Tang Ao believed that as long as his judgment was correct, there must be a passageway connecting the palace to the outside world. Otherwise, would the experts here have to break the void every time they went in and out of the palace? That was clearly impossible. At the thought of this, Tang Ao continued to search the palace. The size of the palace was beyond Tang Ao imagination. Even in his previous life, Tang Ao had never seen such a magnificent palace. The Seven Kills sect was considered one of the top sects in the Black-Yellow continent. However, the entire Seven Kills sect was not even a quarter of the size of this hall. After walking for a long time, Tang Ao arrived in front of two stone pillars. With just a glance, Tang Ao was shocked by the material of the two stone pillars. Tang Ao was definitely not someone who had not seen the world. However, it was the first time that Tang Ao had seen a stone pillar carved with skycloud stone. Chapter 1874. If he hadn't used his soul remembrance to confirm, Tang Ao wouldn't have believed that these two stone pillars were carved from sky-cloud stone. On these two stone pillars there were a total of 8 large words. These 8 words were, "Great Dream Tao Lord, live forever." Great Dream Tao Lord? Tang Ao suddenly paused and immediately thought of the 2 gray stones he had obtained before. The 2 gray stones contained 2 broken maps. When Tang Ao heard the news, as long as he passed Great Dream Tao Lord's 3rd test, he could obtain the Tao Lord's inheritance and exchange for the treasures in the gray stones. Tang Ao didn't think that he would accidentally come to Great Dream Tao Lord's Tao Palace. However, what Tang Ao didn't understand was why Great Dream Tao Lord didn't leave his inheritance ruins here since he left his palace here. Instead, he left his inheritance ruins somewhere else. Wasn't this an unnecessary move? As he thought, Tang Ao's soul remembrance wandered over the 2 stone pillars carved from sky-cloud stone. When Tang Ao's soul remembrance passed over the sky-cloud stone pillars, the stone pillars emitted a special fluctuation. However, Tang Ao was too engrossed in his thoughts and didn't notice. However, Tang Ao quickly paused because in front of Tang Ao, there was a large void rune. This rune was between the 2 stone pillars, and there were many cryptic runes on it. Although this was the first time Tang Ao had seen this rune, Tang Ao knew what it was. This was like a password lock. As long as the runes on it were arranged correctly, the rune could be opened. Tang Ao originally thought that the only thing left of this broken palace were the broken walls. However, Tang Ao now knew that he was wrong. The reason for that was because there was a spirit formation space hidden behind the rune. However, how to open this rune was difficult for Tang Ao. Tang Ao knew that if there were any good things in the palace, they would all be in the boundary space sealed by the runes. However, the runes were too complicated and obscure. Tang Ao felt that even his master, Yun Xiaoyao, would find it difficult to open the barrier, let alone himself. Since he couldn't open it through normal means, he could only try using brute force. Without much hesitation, Tang Ao took out the devil beheading axe and slashed at the rune floating in the air. The devil beheading axe flashed with a white light, and a terrifying power instantly exploded out. It was as if space itself would shatter under this axe. However, when this incomparably terrifying axe chopped down on this mysterious rune, Tang Ao felt the boundless power of the demon-slaying axe instantly disappear. In other words, the power of the demon-slaying axe was completely absorbed by this ancient rune. Just as Tang Ao was feeling puzzled, Tang Ao's expression suddenly changed. Because at this moment, Tang Ao suddenly felt an even more terrifying force coming from the rune. Chapter 1875. This puppet was obtained by Tang Ao from the puppet killing spell. After obtaining it, Tang Ao did not know what it could be used for, so he had been keeping it in his storage ring. However, right then, after Tang Ao had put the puppet into the groove, it fit perfectly. Then, Tang Ao realized that the horrifying power that had been attacking him had all been transferred to this puppet. All of a sudden, the aura on the puppet's body increased drastically. Within a blink of an eye, it had broken through the Yuan martial realm and reached the Sea of Souls realm. However, the puppet's aura was still increasing at a horrifying speed, showing no signs of stopping. Another moment later, the puppet's aura had broken through the Sea of Souls realm and reached the life and death realm. After reaching the life and death realm, Tang Ao could see that the puppet's aura was also increasing at a horrifying speed. Soon, it had reached the peak of life and death realm level 9. However, after reaching the peak of life and death realm level 9, the puppet's cultivation stopped increasing as well. Although it was only one step away from reaching the astral reaching realm, it had stopped there. After the horrifying power from the symbol had been absorbed by the puppet, the mysterious symbol shone brightly before slowly merging with the puppet, disappearing completely. At the same time that the runic array disappeared, a terrifying suction force was instantly emitted. Feeling that he was about to be sucked in, Tang Ao used his soul power and pulled the floating puppet into his hand. Holding the puppet in his hand, Tang Ao could still feel the horrifying aura from it. Before, Tang Ao did not think much of this puppet. But now, Tang Ao realized that this puppet was a treasure as well. The peak of life and death realm level 9 was enough to crush all the warriors in the Flying Star continent. However, before Tang Ao could get excited, the power of the puppet instantly disappeared. When he carefully observed it, he found that the power of the puppet had been sealed by the incomparably complex runes. Seeing this, Tang Ao wanted to vomit blood. However, before Tang Ao could think too much about it, Tang Ao found himself in a special space. This place was surrounded by a vast expanse of white fog, and there was only a huge white jade platform floating in the void. After Tang Ao landed on the white jade platform, a voice sounded around him. "I am Yi Menghan, I have cultivated for 18,000 years and my title is Great Dream Tao Lord." When he heard that God King Yunxing's treasury had appeared, he came to investigate. He discovered that the demonic world's great primordial demonic god wanted to steal God King Falling Star's treasury, so he tried to stop him. After a great battle, he wanted to slay the primordial fiend celestial, but he was ambushed by the scum of the human race, the primordial magnetic Tao Lord, and died. Before he fell, he left behind another legacy. "Whoever obtains my legacy must slay the magnetism." After hearing this voice, Tang Ao was even more puzzled. Wasn't it said that Great Dream Tao Master's relic was in the place recorded on the gray stone? The warriors who obtained it from the puppet-killing array all knew where it was. How could Great Dream Tao Master's relic appear here? If this was Great Dream Tao Master's relic, then what was the place recorded on the gray stone? Chapter 1876. Tang Ao was secretly surprised. This was enough to prove that this was the real relic of Great Dream Tao Master. Otherwise, Tang Ao's gray stone would not be able to exchange for these two animal skin maps here. Tang Ao knew that these two animal skin maps were related to the Fallen Star token. Now, combined with Great Dream Tao Master's words, Tang Ao also understood some problems. That was, the legendary Divine King realm really existed. The owner of the Fallen Star token, Divine King Yunxing, was a real Divine King realm expert. In order to compete for the inheritance, Great Dream Tao Master fought with the primordial demon god of the demon realm. In the end, when Great Dream Tao Master was about to kill the primordial demon god, Magnetism Tao Master launched a sneak attack, causing Great Dream Tao Master's death. The Tao Master realm was still an unreachable realm for the current Tang Ao. However, Tang Ao also understood that even if he cultivated to the Tao Master realm, there was still a possibility of death. However, Tang Ao was not sad or afraid. Instead, Tang Ao's heart was filled with a burning desire to fight. Martial arts cultivation was a process of survival of the fittest. Tang Ao had the courage to compete with all the geniuses. It was also at this time that a pagoda shrouded in mist appeared on the white jade platform. "If you want my inheritance, you need to climb the Great Dream Pagoda." Tang Ao did not know if Great Dream Tao Master's divine thought was here or something else. However, Tang Ao did not think much about it and looked at the pagoda. Others did not know what the Great Dream Pagoda was, but Tang Ao knew. The Great Dream Pagoda was a top treasure of the same level as Tang Ao's primordial sacred heaven Bao and Shinong cauldron. Now Tang Ao had not received the inheritance of Great Dream Tao Master, but Tang Ao had some ideas about the Great Dream Pagoda. Without thinking too much, Tang Ao stepped forward and entered the Great Dream Pagoda. As soon as he entered the Great Dream Floating Pagoda, Tang Ao saw a barefooted little girl with a bun on her head. The little girl looked to be only 6 or 7 years old. She was dressed in a green robe, and her big watery eyes were filled with doubt. When Tang Ao suddenly came in, the fruit in her hand fell to the ground in fright. "Little girl, why are you here?" Tang Ao was a little puzzled. Tang Ao thought that the so-called test would be a thrilling battle. He did not expect to see this cute little girl. Seeing her timid appearance, Tang Ao really wanted to go over and hug this cute little girl. I am the spirit of the Great Dream Pagoda. I am in charge of." Perhaps it was because no one had spoken to her for a long time, or perhaps she was a little timid in front of strangers. At this moment, little Meng tugged at the corner of her clothes and spoke crisply. Because she was a little nervous, the little girl forgot what to say for a moment. However, she quickly remembered, "I am in charge of the test for everyone who wants to receive the inheritance of Great Dream Tao Master." After saying this, little Meng raised her head happily. "You are in charge of the test?" Tang Ao did not know whether to laugh or cry. Tang Ao did not expect that an expert like Great Dream Tao Master would need to pass the test of a little girl to receive his inheritance. "Then what are you going to test?" Chapter 1877. Little sister, my name is Tang Ao. What's your name? Tang Ao's interest was piqued when he heard that it was the little girl who set up the test. If an expert like Great Dream Tao Master set up the test seriously, Tang Ao was not confident that he could pass. Just like the previous puppet-killing formation, if Tang Ao did not have the 9 Dragon Emperor's jade body, Tang Ao's situation would not be much better than other warriors. But that puppet-killing formation was only the first test of Great Dream Tao Master's test. It was conceivable that if Tang Ao did not come here by accident, it would be very difficult for him to pass the 3 tests and finally get the inheritance. But now that Tang Ao was lucky to come here, Tang Ao naturally had to make full use of his advantage as a pioneer. Especially now that the person in charge of the test was just a little girl, Tang Ao smiled proudly. At this time, Tang Ao did not care about deceiving the little girl. What Tang Ao needed to do now was to hand over the inheritance of Great Dream Tao Master. In the beginning, Tang Ao only got the inheritance of Ming Di, but it played such a big role in Tang Ao's cultivation. Now, what appeared in front of Tang Ao was the inheritance of a Tao Master expert. At this time, it would be a lie to say that he was not excited. "Brother Tang Ao, my name is Little Meng. Do you have a gift for me?" After saying this, Little Meng looked at Tang Ao with her big watery eyes, full of expectation. Little Meng's words caused Tang Ao to stare blankly for a moment. Little Meng was obviously not a demon beast, so it was absolutely impossible to give her a spirit beastan. Moreover, what was the favorite thing of a child at this age? Although there were all kinds of things that children liked, Tang Ao was sure that this thing was absolutely liked by all children. Tang Ao opened his palm and took out a jade box from his storage ring. When Tang Ao and La Kale visited the small town at the foot of the mountain of the 7 Kills sect, this jade box was a tribute given to Tang Ao by the peddlers there. Sealed in this jade box was a superior osmanthus cake. Although it was not helpful to the cultivation of a martial artist, the taste was indeed very good. Eating sweet candy cakes was definitely something all children had in common. Tang Ao removed the seals on the jade box and opened it slowly. Then Xiaoming saw the 8 osmanthus cakes neatly placed in the jade box. The moment the jade box was opened, a refreshing fragrance came out. Xiaoming's eyes lit up as she looked at the osmanthus cakes and smelled the fragrance. Then, she looked at Tang Ao in disbelief. In Xiaoming's opinion, the things in Tang Ao's hands seemed to be very delicious. However, Xiaoming couldn't believe that there was such a delicious thing in this world. When Xiaoming followed Yi Menghan only treated Xiaoming as an artifact spirit. Because Xiaoming could also cultivate, Yi Menghan only gave Xiaoming some elixirs to eat. At most, when Yi Menghan encountered some good spirit fruits, she would let Xiaoming satisfy her cravings. However, Xiaoming had never seen such mortal food, let alone eat it. Here, take it. Looking at Xiaoming's big sparkling eyes, Tang Ao knew that this little girl really liked osmanthus cakes. Although Xiaoming was the artifact spirit of the Big Dream Pagoda and had lived for tens of thousands of years, Xiaoming's mind was obviously that of a 6 or 7-year-old child. After receiving the osmanthus cake from Tang Ao, Xiaoming was very happy. Chapter 1878. Hearing Xiaoming's words, Tang Ao's face darkened. Tang Ao thought to himself, "This is the inheritance of a Tao master, but now it's settled with a box of osmanthus cake?" However, Tang Ao did not make things difficult for himself. Since Xiaoming said he passed, then he passed. Although his means were not good, wisdom was also a manifestation of strength. At this moment, Tang Ao attributed his behavior to wisdom. "Little sister Xiaoming, can I go directly to the top floor and get the inheritance of Tao Master Great Dream?" Because things were too easy, Tang Ao asked with some uncertainty. "Yes." Xiaoming nodded with her mouth full of osmanthus cake, then said vaguely, "There are some simple tests on each floor above, and you can get some treasures by passing these tests. Of course, if Brother Tang Ao doesn't want to take the test, then I can directly send Brother Tang Ao to the 36th floor." Tang Ao was overjoyed. Sure enough, the inheritance of Tao Master Little Dream was in his hands. However, after hearing that there were rewards for passing each floor, Tang Ao decided to give it a try. After all, he had directly skipped the 3 tests before ascending the tower, and if he directly went to get the inheritance of Tao Master Great Dream, Tang Ao was worried that if Tao Master Great Dream left a soul behind, then it would be impossible to get the inheritance of Tao Master Great Dream. Moreover, there were treasures for passing the test on each floor, and there were still 35 floors above. Tang Ao still wanted to see what treasures he could get. Just as Tang Ao was about to go to the 2nd floor, Xiaoming waved her hand, and then 3 light balls appeared in front of Tang Ao. Tang Ao was very familiar with this light ball. Previously, after killing the puppets in the puppet boundary, he would finally get the opportunity to choose the treasures in the light ball. "Brother Tang Ao, originally you could only choose one of these 3 water moonstones, but because I am responsible for the 1st floor, these 3 water moonstones are all for you." Looking at the 3 water moonstones in front of him, Tang Ao had a surreal feeling. Previously, in the puppet barrier, so many cultivators had risked their lives to obtain 2 water moonstones. Moreover, for the sake of these water moonstones, Tang Ao was later stopped by the people of Intoxicated Gold House. But now, Tang Ao actually obtained 3 water moonstones so easily. Water moonstone, as the name suggested, had the same meaning as Great Dream Tao Master. Looking at the 3 water moonstones in front of him, Tang Ao felt surreal. Among the 3 water moonstones, there was a dazzling golden stone. This stone was surrounded by a terrifyingly high temperature, as if the entire space was about to melt under this terrifying heat. Although this was the first time Tang Ao had seen this stone, Tang Ao recognized it at a glance. Among the 6 top treasures for the Netherworld Flame to evolve into the immortal Nether Flame, there was a treasure called the Sacred Sun Stone. At this moment, The dazzling golden stone in the light ball was impressively a sacred sun stone. As for the sacred sunstone, Tang Ao really had no clue about it. However, Tang Ao never thought that even though he had not obtained the earth fire essence flame, the sacred sunstone, which was even more precious than the earth fire essence flame, would be obtained so easily. Chapter 1879. Okay, thank you, Brother Tang Ao. Xiao Meng looked very happy when she heard that Tang Ao would take her to eat delicious food. She tiptoed and kissed Tang Ao's face. Xiao Meng's action made Tang Ao feel that this child was really cute. Tang Ao reached out and grabbed the 3 balls of light. The 3 balls of light turned into silver-gray water moon stones. In addition to the holy sunstone, the other 2 water moon stones also contained good stuff. Like the holy sunstone, they were both very high-grade spiritual materials. However, even with Tang Ao's eyesight, he couldn't recognize the 2 spiritual materials. Because of the existence of the 100 herb collection, Tang Ao basically knew about all kinds of spiritual herbs. However, the 100 herb collection only recorded all kinds of spiritual herbs and didn't have many records about spiritual materials. Therefore, Tang Ao couldn't recognize some of the especially high-grade spiritual materials. Getting a treasure like the Holy Sun Stone in the first level made Tang Ao look forward to the later assessment. As a Dao Master Realm expert, Great Dream Dao Master probably had all the treasures needed for the Nether Fire to advance. Even if he didn't, after getting the Holy Sunstone, Tang Ao felt that this trip was not in vain. Moreover, if there were no accidents later, this Great Dream Pagoda would be taken away by Tang Ao. Just like Tang Ao's primordial sacred heaven bow and Shinong cauldron, this Great Dream Pagoda was also a 9th grade immortal weapon. Tang Ao didn't care about immortal weapons that were too low grade, but Tang Ao would never let go of an immortal weapon of this level. After putting away the 3 water moon stones that Xiao Meng gave him, Tang Ao came to the 2nd level. It was completely different from the 1st level. The 2nd level was a jungle. As soon as Tang Ao appeared, he was surrounded by more than 10 wolves. Tang Ao didn't know what kind of wolf demonic beasts these wolves were. They were as big as bulls and had a vertical pupil on their foreheads. Just by looking at them, one could tell that these fellows were not easy to deal with. Without giving Tang Ao any time, after Tang Ao appeared, these huge wolf demons attacked Tang Ao. Their attacks were swift and violent. After a deafening roar, a demon wolf leaped up and slammed its sharp claws towards Tang Ao. Although their cultivation bases were the same as Tang Ao's, Tang Ao discovered that these guys were clearly the same as him, possessing strength that was completely different from his own cultivation base. If it was a normal martial artist at the 1st level of the Origin Realm, not to mention anything else, they would not be able to dodge that claw that was as fast as lightning. Although Tang Ao could have easily avoided the claws, Tang Ao didn't dodge. Tang Ao wanted to test the strength of these demon wolves. After all, this was only the 2nd level of the Great Dream Pagoda. If he couldn't even pass the 2nd level and needed Xiao Meng to go easy on him, Tang Ao would be too useless. With a flash of golden light, the Battle Sage Bone Life Soul was summoned. Due to the Black Jade Immortal Fruit given by the Snow-Winged Spirit Cat, Tang Ao's Soul C recovered a little. The recovery of the Soul C was accompanied by the strengthening of the Life Soul. Previously, the Battle Sage Bone Life Soul was too weak. When he used the Battle Sage Bone Life Soul, Tang Ao always felt weak. But now, Tang Ao felt that the Battle Sage Bone Life Soul was filled with explosive power. Chapter 1880. Without giving Tang Ao any time to catch his breath, the remaining wolf demons roared and charged at Tang Ao after sending Tang Ao flying. It was as though they wanted to crush Tang Ao. Seeing how arrogant these guys were, Tang Ao naturally had to teach them a lesson. If it were before, Tang Ao would not be a match for these wolf demons in terms of pure strength. But now it was different. Tang Ao opened his right hand and a dark silver axe appeared in Tang Ao's hand. This axe had a special sense of heaviness, but it didn't have much weight in his hand. However, no matter who it was that was wielding this axe, they would all be shocked by the terrifying power of the axe. When Tang Ao brandished the demon-slaying axe, there was an ear-piercing sonic boom in the air. It was as though when Tang Ao brandished the axe, the space could no longer withstand the terrifying power of the axe. Tang Ao's eyes turned cold as his primordial chi erupted. Then, Tang Ao brandished the demon-slaying axe in his hand and swept it in front of him. Suddenly, the wind howled and dust flew everywhere. The trees in the surrounding forest began to sway under the pressure. A terrifying half-moon-shaped axe blade flew out instantly. Then, under the horrified gazes of these giant wolf demons, the half-moon-shaped axe blade completely minced them into pieces. Under this axe, everything in front of Tang Ao became a mess. At this moment, there wasn't even a standing tree or an intact rock in front of Tang Ao. After refining the demon-slaying axe, this was the first time Tang Ao used the demon-slaying axe to unleash a full-force strike. Although Tang Ao knew that the demon-slaying axe was powerful, it was only now that Tang Ao realized that the demon-slaying axe was powerful to such an extent. Such terrifying power was indeed worthy of the demon-slaying axe's name. Then, Tang Ao looked at the last giant wolf demon. Under Tang Ao's axe, only this giant wolf demon that was preparing to sneak attack from behind was still alive. After seeing Tang Ao's mighty axe strike, the giant wolf demon was really scared out of its wits by Tang Ao. Therefore, it screamed and prepared to flee into the distance. However, the corner of Tang Ao's mouth revealed a trace of a sneer, because Tang Ao knew that this guy was just pretending to escape. He was actually waiting for him to catch up to him to launch a sneak attack. Although he knew the wolf demon's intentions, Tang Ao still chased after it without hesitation. Sure enough, when Tang Ao chased after it, the giant wolf demon suddenly turned its head, and the vertical eye on its forehead suddenly shot out a terrifying white light. This white light revealed an aura of death. If it hit a vital point, Tang Ao would definitely die. However, Tang Ao was already prepared, so the moment the giant wolf demon turned its head, Tang Ao's figure disappeared. When Tang Ao appeared again, Tang Ao had already raised the demon-slaying axe and fiercely chopped down at the giant wolf demon. Without any suspense, the wolf demon didn't understand what was going on. Tang Ao had already taken its life. After Tang Ao killed the last wolf demon, the surrounding scene quickly changed. Chapter 1881. Tang Ao was very satisfied with passing 10 levels in one go. What made Tang Ao the happiest was that after leaving the jungle-like place, Tang Ao's yuan qi and psyche were all replenished. This meant that Tang Ao hadn't used any energy in the previous battle. This made Tang Ao very happy. If this was the case, then he would be able to fight without any worries. Although Tang Ao hadn't considered his own yuan qi consumption in the previous battle, that was because Tang Ao had the 9 Dragon Emperor Jade Body's heaven-defying physique. His yuan qi recovery was very fast. Moreover, Tang Ao felt that the heaven and earth yuan qi was very abundant in this space. Therefore, Tang Ao dared to consume his yuan qi without restraint. Looking at the 27 balls of light in front of him, Tang Ao's eyes were very fervent. Tang Ao only glanced at them. Tang Ao knew that even a decisive person like him would have to face the dilemma of making a choice one day. This was because all the things in front of him were treasures. Among these 27 items there were too many good things. At a glance, Tang Ao saw the light cluster on the far right. In this light cluster, there was a flower that looked like a glazed crystal. Around this flower, there was a burst of immortal charm. Tang Ao was very familiar with this flower. Tang Ao had thought about how to obtain this flower more than once. However, Tang Ao never expected that his first Kunlun flower would be obtained this way. That's right, the treasure in the light ball was a healing holy Kunlun flower. Although the black jade immortal fruit that Tang Ao had consumed previously was also a good thing, it was far inferior compared to the Kunlun flower. Tang Ao felt that even if this Kunlun flower couldn't completely repair his soul sea and spiritual sea, it could definitely heal most of his injuries. Ever since the end of the underworld emperor mystic realm, Tang Ao's soul sea and spirit sea had not fully recovered. This caused Tang Ao to be unable to collect his debt even if he wanted to. Although a lot of time had passed, those fellows must have made some breakthroughs in their cultivation. But Tang Ao was not afraid at all. The terror of the 9 Dragons Emperor's jade body was not something these guys could imagine. Without any hesitation, Tang Ao grabbed the Kunlun flower. After obtaining the Kunlun flower, Tang Ao was in a good mood. To be able to obtain the Kunlun flower so easily was really a stroke of luck. Tang Ao knew that his luck this time was not small. He had accidentally come to Dao Lord Great Dream's Dao Palace and had obtained treasures like black gold, holy sunstone and Kunlun flower. Not only that, there was also a dark silver puppet in Tang Ao's storage ring that was comparable to a peak life and death realm warrior. Although the puppet was sealed by an ancient rune, as long as the puppet was on Tang Ao's body, Tang Ao was confident that he would be able to break the seal. After taking the water moon stone with the Kunlun flower, Tang Ao looked at the other light orbs. In these light orbs there were many things that Tang Ao did not recognize. But the things that Tang Ao recognized were all treasures among treasures. According to the rules, Tang Ao could still choose 8 treasures from these light orbs. Although Tang Ao was a little regretful that he could not take all of these things away. However, Tang Ao didn't hesitate for too long. Right now, he could only choose 8 treasures. No matter how reluctant he was, he could only choose 8 treasures. Since this was the case, why waste time? Besides these treasures, there were more than 20 levels in Great Dream Pagoda. As long as he passed the tests above, Tang Ao could still continue to obtain other treasures. Therefore, Tang Ao was very decisive and quickly picked out 8 types of treasures from the pile. This time, Tang Ao chose spiritual materials that looked very high level. Although there were some immortal weapons and high-level elixirs in these light orbs, these things were not very useful to Tang Ao. On the contrary, Tang Ao's craftsmanship was about to have a breakthrough. After Tang Ao's breakthrough, it would be the most awkward if he wanted to craft immortal weapons without spiritual materials. Therefore, Tang Ao chose high-level spiritual materials this time. He did not know what these spiritual materials were now, but it did not mean that he would not know in the future. It was just that even Tang Ao did not expect the grade of the immortal material he had obtained this time. If they were ordinary immortal materials, it was impossible for Tang Ao to not recognize them with Yun Xiaoyao's craftsmanship legacy. But now, even with Yun Xiaoyao's craftsmanship legacy, Tang Ao did not know these materials. Therefore, it was obvious how high-level these immortal materials were. It was just that Tang Ao had not thought about it in detail, so he naturally did not consider this point. Chapter 1882. Although Tang Ao rarely looked in the mirror, Tang Ao still knew that the black-clothed youth sitting opposite him looked exactly like him. Not only did they look alike, but even their life souls seemed to be the same. Tang Ao's Green Lotus Sword soul had evolved several times to become what it was today, and the Green Lotus Sword soul of the Tang Ao opposite him was also exactly the same as his. Is this levels test against myself? This is interesting. Tang Ao muttered to himself. This was the first time that Tang Ao had encountered such a thing in his 2 lives of cultivation. However, the black-clothed youth sitting opposite him seemed to understand what Tang Ao was thinking. Hence, he slowly got up and said to Tang Ao, "My name is Lonely Shadow. My name is Guing. My ability is a little special. I can replicate any warrior's ability. The moment you stepped onto the martial arts arena, your ability was completely replicated by me. I am very surprised by your situation. I have met warriors with the 9 Dragons Emperor Jade body before. However, you are a little special. Tang Ao didn't care about what Lonely Shadow had said before, but after Lonely Shadow directly mentioned his 9 Dragons Emperor Jade body constitution, Tang Ao couldn't help but care. Because the existence of the 9 Dragons Emperor Jade body was very special, even warriors who were much stronger than Tang Ao wouldn't be able to see through Tang Ao's 9 Dragons Emperor Jade body constitution if they didn't have any special means. Tang Ao was sure that he had never come into contact with Lonely Shadow before. As long as it was a warrior that Tang Ao had come into contact with, Tang Ao would definitely remember the other party's aura. This meant that Lonely Shadow really knew that he had the 9 Dragons Emperor Jade body constitution with just a glance. This kind of ability was terrifying. However, Tang Ao still had one doubt, and that was whether Lonely Shadow had really replicated all his abilities. Let's fight. If you defeat me, you will be able to obtain the items on the top floor. However, if you lose to me, you will soon be unable to leave. After saying that, Lonely Shadow hesitated for a moment before saying, "Of course, I can also give you a choice. If you leave now, I can make the decision to give you the reward for clearing this floor. What do you think?" Solitary Shadow was definitely not a talkative person, but he had said enough today. The reason why he said so much was because Solitary Shadow had no confidence in facing Tang Ao. After Great Dream Dao Master died, Solitary Shadow guarded the light card of the 11th floor of the Great Dream Pagoda. Although the Great Dream Pagoda had 36 levels and was said to have 36 stages, in reality, there were only 3 stages. The first test was to obtain the approval of the Great Dream Floating Pagoda's artifact spirit, Xiaomeng. The second test was to fight against an ancient desolate wolf demon of the same realm. The third test was to defeat him. As long as he defeated him, he would be able to obtain what Dao Venerate Great Dream left behind. Back then, Solitary Shadow had made an agreement with Dao Venerate Great Dream. As long as he could defeat 100 warriors who came to challenge the pagoda, he could take away what Dao Venerate Great Dream had left behind and leave the Great Dream Pagoda. In total, Tang Ao had exactly 100 challengers. He had waited for this day for far too long, so when he learned that another warrior had defeated the ancient desolate wolf demon, Solitary Shadow was very excited. However, when Tang Ao stepped onto the martial arts field and his innate secret technique successfully replicated Tang Ao's abilities, Solitary Shadow lost confidence. Chapter 1883. Therefore, Solitary Shadow decided to wait a bit longer. Although he didn't know when the next inheritor would appear, he would rather wait a bit longer. Solitary Shadow didn't know how long he had been guarding this place. Therefore, time really didn't mean anything to him. Moreover, in this enchanted space created by Great Dream Dao Venerable, Solitary Shadow was an immortal existence. Therefore, time really didn't mean anything to him. If not for this being his 100th battle, perhaps he wouldn't have been so cautious. However, this battle was too special, and Tang Ao was terrifyingly powerful. Therefore, Solitary Shadow was afraid. Fear before a battle was a great taboo for martial artists. As a peak astral-reaching martial artist, Solitary Shadow naturally knew this. Although his cultivation base had been suppressed to the same level as Tang Ao, his true cultivation base was at peak astral-reaching 9th level. In other words, just like Tang Ao, he was also a martial artist who had reached the astral-reaching realm. Compared to Solitary Shadow, Tang Ao wasn't as nervous. In other words, the current Tang Ao was a bit inflated. Make your move. I also want to see how much I can do. Unexpectedly, Solitary Shadow boasted that he could copy his abilities. Tang Ao also wanted to see how much of his abilities Solitary Shadow could copy. Hearing Tang Ao's words, Solitary Shadow bitterly smiled and said, "If I were the same as you, I would also have your confidence. Since you want to fight, let's fight." Different from Tang Ao's imagination, in this special space, Solitary Shadow could completely copy Tang Ao's abilities. He could even copy Tang Ao's immortal items. At this moment, there were only two differences between Tang Ao and Solitary Shadow. First, Tang Ao had the Primal Chaos 6 Light Mirror. Although Solitary Shadow also had the Primal Chaos 6 Light Mirror on his neck, it was only an ordinary accessory and didn't have the power of the mirror. After all, no matter how powerful Great Dream Tao Venerable was, he didn't have the ability to copy a Primal Chaos 6 Light Mirror. After saying that, Solitary Shadow took the initiative to attack. His first move was the 7 Slaughter Divine Way's first sword, Windcloud Rustling Kill. Suddenly, the entire space was filled with a sense of desolation and decay. At this moment, it was as if the entire world had calmed down. In this world, only Gu Ying and Tang Ao were left. Solitary Shadow's sword had already stabbed out. It was just a simple sword, but it seemed like nothing in the world could stop this sword. However, Tang Ao had blocked it. It was also a sword that had blocked this sword, but this sword exuded a netherworld aura that was bone-chilling. Ding! After a short probing, both of them retreated. Tang Ao did not expect that not only did Gu Ying look exactly the same as him, but even his life spirit and martial techniques were the same. That move just now was the first move of the 7 Killing Divine Way, Windcloud Slaughter. To be precise, the 7 Killing Divine Way wasn't a sword technique manual. However, because Tang Ao used a sword, the martial arts technique Tang Ao developed with the 7 Killing Divine Way was also a sword technique. Chapter 1884. After Tang Ao summoned the Netherworld Sword, Tang Ao saw that there was also a Netherworld Sword in Lonely Shadow's hand. All of a sudden, the space was filled with a cold and desolate netherworld aura. In the calm space, there was a cold wind blowing. The Netherworld Sword was summoned through the Underworld Life Soul. The Underworld Life Soul was a top life soul of the 36 levels. For Solitary Shadow to be able to summon the Netherworld Sword meant that he had also replicated Tang Ao's Underworld Life Soul. This kind of power could no longer be described as afraid. In fact, Lonely Shadow was also shocked. Lonely Shadow was a peak astral-reaching realm level 9 martial artist at his peak, but he had never awakened such a powerful life spirit. He did not know what level this Netherworld life spirit was at, but he knew that this life spirit was extremely weak. Otherwise, it would be very scary. Besides the Netherworld life spirit, there was also a broken soul ocean and spirit ocean inside Lonely Shadow's body. Every martial artist had a spirit ocean, but it was Lonely Shadow's first time seeing a soul ocean. Therefore, Lonely Shadow was sure that if Tang Ao's soul ocean and spirit ocean were not broken, then Tang Ao would be the true invincible existence in the same realm. As for now, he had the same power as Tang Ao, so it was hard to say who would win. Right now, the difference between him and Tang Ao was the battle experience they had. However, Lonely Shadow felt that Tang Ao's battle experience would not be any worse than his. Moreover, because he had copied Tang Ao's power, Tang Ao was already very familiar with these martial skill life spirit. On the other hand, it was Lonely Shadow's first time using it. Although he did not feel the slightest bit awkward, he was still at a disadvantage. Mournful Winds and Clouds Annihilation. After the previous probing, Tang Ao took the initiative to attack. The Green Lotus Sword Soul appeared behind Tang Ao instantly. It swayed in the air and turned into 7 shining green lotus great swords. As soon as the sword was unleashed, the whole world was filled with killing intent. This sword of Tang Ao's was more than a few notches stronger compared to Lone Shadow's earlier sword. Due to his talent mystic technique, although Solitary Shadow had grasped all of Tang Ao's martial technique life souls, when Solitary Shadow used Tang Ao's martial technique, it only had the form but not the essence. Lonely Shadow had no intention of taking on Tang Ao's attack head-on. However, he was shocked to discover that Tang Ao's attack seemed to have locked onto him. No matter how he dodged, he couldn't avoid Tang Ao's attack. However, Solitary Shadow did not panic. Instead, he brought out a bronze cauldron. Tang Ao was very familiar with this bronze cauldron. It was his Shinnon cauldron. Although Tang Ao's attacks were extremely sharp, in front of the Shinnon Emperor, Tang Ao's attacks couldn't even be counted as a drizzle. Tang Ao used the Shinnon cauldron to save himself many times. Towards the Shinnon cauldron's defense, Tang Ao knew it better than anyone else. Even when Tang Ao used the primordial sacred heavenly bow, he could only barely break through the Shinnon Emperor's defense. From that, it could be seen how terrifying the Shinnon cauldron's defense was. Tang Ao's extremely sharp sword aura landed on the Shinnon cauldron like raindrop. The sword aura could pierce through a level 3 Origin Realm monster, but in front of the Shinnon cauldron, it was too powerless. Chapter 1885. Solitary Shadow cleaved forward with his axe. Although Tang Ao wanted to continue attacking, he was forced to retreat. Solitary Shadow clearly didn't expect the axe to take down Tang Ao. After forcing Tang Ao back, Solitary Shadow immediately turned his body and began circling Tang Ao with the demon-slaying axe. Instantly, the entire space was filled with sword chi and axe blades. The ground of the martial arts practice field was in a mess because of the two of them. After the initial stage of probing each other, the more they fought, the stronger they became. Moreover, as time passed, Guing gradually became familiar with Tang Ao's martial spirit. However, it was completely different from what Solitary Shadow had imagined. Previously, Solitary Shadow believed that it was because he wasn't familiar enough with Tang Ao's life soul that he couldn't suppress Tang Ao. However, now that Solitary Shadow was completely familiar with Tang Ao's life soul, Solitary Shadow was still being suppressed by Tang Ao. However, it wasn't easy for Tang Ao to completely defeat Solitary Shadow. Although using the Shinnon cauldron drained his psyche and primordial energy, Tang Ao used a move that required Solitary Shadow to use the Shinnon cauldron to defend. It also drained him greatly. At that moment, Tang Ao was thinking about how to defeat Solitary Shadow. Tang Ao was all too familiar with his life soul. In his current state, even if he used the primordial sacred heavenly bow, he wouldn't be able to break through the Shinnon Emperor's defense. At most, he would be constantly drained of energy and suffer heavy injuries with Solitary Shadow. However, Tang Ao quickly thought of something. Back when he joined the 7 Kills sect, it was to learn the 7 Kill Slaughter art. However, the 7 Kill Slaughter art was only a cultivation technique that Feng Ye had derived from the 7 Kill Holy Way. As for Tang Ao, he was fortunate enough to learn the real 7 Kill Holy Way. The 7 Kill Holy Way was very special. It was a derivation-type cultivation technique. As Tang Ao mainly cultivated sword arts, Tang Ao's 7 Kill Holy Way should be derived into 7 Sword Dao cultivation technique. However, up until now, Tang Ao had only managed to deduce the first move, Wind Cloud Abrupt Kill. Thinking of this, Tang Ao suddenly understood the meaning of this test. Solitary Shadow could replicate all the life spirit martial skills, cultivation techniques, and secret skills that the challenger had already mastered. However, if he gained new insights in battle, Solitary Shadow would never be able to replicate them. At the thought of this, Tang Ao started to use the 7 Kills Divine Path to deduce his second sword while fighting the Lone Shadow. For a long time, Tang Ao had wanted a lightning-attributed martial technique. However, up until now, Tang Ao had yet to find a lightning-attributed martial technique that caught his eye. Since that was the case, Tang Ao could only deduce it himself. As the 7 killing sage path circulated, a scene of lightning dancing in the sky appeared in Tang Ao's mind. Although Tang Ao wanted to use the 7 slaughter sacred path to derive a lightning-type martial technique, Tang Ao did not need such a large-scale martial technique. In fact, many martial techniques looked extremely beautiful, but in reality, they were flashy without substance. If Tang Ao continued to deduce it in this direction, then Tang Ao would eventually obtain a martial technique that could summon lightning within 1,000 feet. Once such a martial technique was used, the commotion would be huge. However, such a martial technique would spread out the warrior's limited essence chi. Tang Ao was certain that even if this martial technique was derived, it would not be practical. Chapter 1886. This bolt of lightning focused all of the warrior's attacks on a single target. Compared to the sky full of lightning from before, the martial technique that he deduced this time was more in line with Tang Ao's requirements. However, what Tang Ao really wanted was to execute the martial technique in the form of a sword art. It had to be known that the sword focused on sharpness. The sword art released by the sword would definitely be stronger than any other martial technique. As he fought with Solitary Shadow, Tang Ao secretly deduced the 7 killing divine ways second sword art. Although Solitary Shadow sensed that something was amiss with Tang Ao, he did not know what Tang Ao was up to. The only difference was that Solitary Shadow was surprised to discover that Tang Ao's attacks now contained a trace of the power of lightning. However, this power of lightning was too weak. It clearly could not affect Solitary Shadow at all. As he was too familiar with his life spirit, martial techniques, and secret techniques, Tang Ao was still able to deal with Solitary Shadow's attacks calmly even when he was deducing the sword art. In Tang Ao's mind, at this moment, Tang Ao didn't know how many times he had deduced. At that moment, a lonely figure stood in Tang Ao's sea of consciousness. On closer look, this person was Tang Ao. At that moment, this figure's actions seemed to be unchanging as he stood there. This figure made the action of unsheathing a sword. However, it seemed like his sword had not been unsheathed for countless years. No one knew what would happen after the sword was unsheathed, nor did anyone know how long it would take for the sword to be unsheathed. However, slowly, bolts of lightning circled around this figure. Soon, these terrifying bolts of lightning gathered towards the sword in his hand. However, when the power of lightning gathered to an extremely terrifying degree, it stopped abruptly. Although he did not manage to deduce the final outcome, Tang Ao's heart was filled with joy. Under such a tense situation, Tang Ao had actually deduced the 7 killing divine ways second sword. Unlike the first sword, Tang Ao's second sword, Wind Cloud Obliteration, only had one sword, one move, and one attack. But this time, it was definitely fatal. Because it was only one move, Tang Ao named it the Thunderclap Slash. With one slash, heaven and earth would change, ghosts and gods would be shocked. At this moment, Tang Ao did not wish to continue such a boring battle. If Lonely Shadow had used another expert's life spirit martial technique, Tang Ao could have a good spar with him. However, Solitary Shadow had used Tang Ao's life soul martial technique. Before the battle even began, Solitary Shadow had already lost half the battle. Tang Ao waved his hand, and the 7 green lotus swords flashed and then merged into one. The essence on Tang Ao's body surged as he executed the wind and cloud slaughter once again. This martial technique was indeed powerful. Other than using the Farmer God Cauldron to block it, or using the Wind Cloud Rustling Kill, Solitary Shadow had no other way to deal with it. This time, Lonely Shadow clearly had no intention of defending. After Tang Ao used Wind Cloud Abrupt Kill, Lonely Shadow similarly used Wind Cloud Abrupt Kill. Chapter 1887. In midair, the two streaks of sword chi clashed. At the moment of collision, thousands of sword chi rolled back, bombarding the ground of the martial arts arena until it was riddled with holes. It was a mess. It was just that after this sword, Gu Ying's sword momentum was already exhausted. But the green lotus sword in Tang Ao's hand spun, and then Tang Ao sheathed his sword and stood upright. It was just that although Tang Ao sheathed his sword, Tang Ao's attack did not end. After sheathing his sword, an even more terrifying sword chi suddenly erupted from Tang Ao's body, but it disappeared in an instant. But the green lotus sword in Tang Ao's hand also became more and more terrifying. Traces of lightning converged on the green lotus sword. In an instant, the green lotus sword's aura rose to an unprecedented height. Gu Ying was sure that he had completely replicated all of Tang Ao's life soul martial technique. But facing this martial technique of Tang Ao's at this moment, Gu Ying had no idea at all. Suddenly, Gu Ying thought of an unbelievable thing. That was that this martial technique of Tang Ao's was comprehended during the battle with him just now. Although this kind of thing was somewhat fantastical, if it was explained like this, then it could barely make sense. Moreover, when Tang Ao was fighting with him just now, he also felt that there was lightning essence energy circulating on Tang Ao's body. Thinking like this, Gu Ying suddenly sucked in a breath of cold air. Although it was very hard to accept, Gu Ying also had to admit that Tang Ao was indeed stronger than him. Facing this move of Tang Ao's, Gu Ying felt relieved in his heart. Immediately after, his figure changed, and Gu Ying changed back to his original appearance. This was a pale-faced youth, wearing a long white gown, forming a clear contrast with Tang Ao's black robe. After a bitter laugh, Gu Ying suddenly formed a seal with his hand. Immediately, 9 balls of water spinning at high speed also appeared behind Gu Ying. Water was originally an extremely soft thing, but at this moment, these 9 balls of water spinning at high speed behind Gu Ying emitted a terrifying power. After summoning the 9 balls of water, Lonesome Shadow made the first move. This was his last exchange with Tang Ao. After this attack, either Tang Ao died or he died. This attack was already Lone Shadow's strongest attack. However, against Tang Ao, Lone Shadow truly did not have much confidence. After Solitary Shadow made his move, Tang Ao didn't do anything. However, just as Solitary Shadow's 9 water balls were about to strike Tang Ao's eyes snapped open. Immediately, Tang Ao swept out the green lotus sword in his hand. Suddenly, a terrifying huge sword chi was released from the green lotus sword. This gigantic sword chi was in the shape of a crescent moon. Lightning flashed on the sword chi, and its aura was incomparably violent. It was as if everything would be incinerated into nothingness under this sword. Gu Ying's 9 water balls were already extremely strong. Even if it was a monster at the 3rd or 4th level of the origin realm, they would be crushed into dregs. However, under Tang Ao's indomitable attack, Gu Ying's 9 water balls instantly shattered. After shattering Gu Ying's 9 water balls as easily as breaking dry weeds and smashing rotten wood, Tang Ao's thunderclap landed on Gu Ying's body without any obstruction. Gu Ying didn't even have time to react before he became nothingness under that attack. Although that attack killed Gu Ying, Tang Ao could still see a trace of joy in Gu Ying's eyes. It was as if everything was freed. After Tang Ao killed Gu Ying, it was completely different from what Tang Ao imagined. Tang Ao did not see the water moonstone reward. Instead, a tunnel appeared in front of Tang Ao, and that tunnel seemed to lead to the top floor of the Great Dream Pagoda. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.